Hello, everyone. Welcome, one and all. Welcome back to another episode, another spine number of Chasing Labels. We are on spine number 147, according to my count here. And we are back here once again to get into all of the things, well, many of the things that have happened in the world of boutique label movie collecting over the last 2 weeks. A bunch of announcements happened towards the end of August of 2024. If you're listening to this in the future, welcome to the past, essentially. This is going to be a very heavy episode when it comes to the different slates that have been announced over the last 2 weeks. Once again, towards the end of the month, and the last week of the month, the last several days of the month, there's just an absolute floodgates wide open of stuff that gets announced, and there was a ton. So this is going to be pretty much an entirely slate-filled episode of Chasing Label. It's going to be slates galore. We got everybody from Vinegar Syndrome to Second Sight had announcements. Our good buddies over at Kino, Arrow, Eureka, Warner Archive snuck in there at the last second. Completely forgot about those guys, but they snuck in at the last second. I think they dropped this past Friday, which was right towards the end of the month. So we will get into all of that. I've got a whole list of notes. I watched a bunch of movies. Thank you all here for joining me on Chasing Labels. I'm your host, Andrew. If you are joining us here for the first time, welcome. Glad to have you here. If you're listening on the audio podcast, welcome there. If you're watching the live stream, if you're watching the later broadcast of the live stream, welcome there as well. But before we get into it, there was a sale that happened that started last week. Completely didn't even think that it was coming. That was the Arrow sale over at Barnes and Noble. I know everybody touts the Criterion sale that happens at Barnes and Noble twice every year, but they do have a 50% off Arrow sale as well. That's both online and in store. And it caught me a little bit off guard, but luckily I always have several Arrow releases that I want. Well, the list is ever growing because every month we get new announcements, just like we're going to cover here today. So this weekend, or this past Friday, I went over to my local Barnes & Noble and picked up 3 releases. And my local Barnes & Noble doesn't get a lot of Arrow stuff. They don't have a lot on their shelves. Some newer releases they get here and there. Some stuff that's been sitting on shelves for months or a year that no one seems to buy. And I don't think people are aware is even there. But what was the most odd thing about it, I don't know if this has happened to many of you at home, is if you go onto Barnes & Noble's website, or if you go onto their app, you can check the inventories at your local stores. And I always like to do that because, I want to know if what I want to buy is actually there before I go make the trip there. Both the Barnes & Noble website and the Barnes & Noble app said that all of these were not in stock. But I decided to go there anyway, just on a whim, just because I had because I just wanted to go somewhere on a Friday, essentially. And movie shopping is one of my favorite destination and things to do. So I got 3 releases from Arrow at the Barnes & Noble sale. First up here is something I've been wanting to get for months, is Narc on 4K. I've only ever had Narc on a used DVD. That's all I've ever had Narc on. And I've been wanting to upgrade this ever since I heard this announcement. I wanted to upgrade it when we got it from Australia, when Imprint, I believe, was in one of the box sets over on Imprint. But I got this release here. I wanted to get this for my birthday, actually, back in June. But luckily I waited, so I got it for 50% off, about $25, which I think is a sale for an Arrow 4K release. $25. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I picked that up. I saw it there during the Criterion sale. They had 1 copy, and I was like, I just left it there just because I was Criterion focused at the time. Then next up, I got The Man from Uncle, which is a recent release. This is part of the distribution deal that Arrow has going on now with Warner Brothers, which I think they just one of the releases they announced during their new release announcements is also from that deal as well. There was this that they announced. They announced that double feature of Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans, which is now out and part of the sale. But yeah, I got this. So this will be an upgrade from the Blu-ray that I have. So this is a nice addition here. The Guy Ritchie film from a few years ago, which I still think is rather underrated. People kind of don't talk about it that much, unfortunately. I think a lot of it has to do now with Army Hammer kind of not being around. Like his career is kind of done. Um, and then lastly here, I've got Night Falls on Manhattan just on Blu-ray. This is the Sidney Lumet film. I remember I talked about this when it was announced. I watched it when it was announced here on Chasing Labels. And this is a nice deluxe edition of a Sidney Lumet film. I will never not say no to that. I have a Sidney Lumet section in my collection, so I had to add to it. This film is one of several of his movies dealing with like police corruption. That seemed to be a big thing with Sidney Lumet. He did it in Serpico. He did it with I have it here actually. Prince of the City. Prince of the City, which is another film dealing with police corruption. This movie stars Andy Garcia. I got a nice slipcover here, and then we've got just the Blu-ray here with special features and booklet and such. Very cool. So I believe the Arrow 50% off sale is happening at Barnes & Noble for a month. I think it's going till the 29th of September. At least that's what I saw on the Blu-ray.com forum. So if you haven't partaken in it yet and you want to, you still have some time. Hopefully it does last all the month long. We do have some comments coming in now. Hello, Nancy. Welcome. Hello. Speaking of, thank you, Nancy. I order anything from Vinegar Syndrome? They just had their what was it, Totally Rad sale over the weekend, and along with their announcements, I did end up ordering one thing. I ordered Little Darlings, the cinematograph release. That was their first cinematograph release. I'm probably mispronouncing that completely wrong. But that just seems to be what we do here on Chasing Labels, mispronounce things. So the Little Darlings cinematograph release, which was their first one that they had announced. Their second one, of course, was Red Rock West, which I have here. When it comes to these releases, I do want to continue to get them. I'm waiting, of course, for them to go on sale, which is, I think, a little bit of an inevitability because I guess they want them to sell. There's still about 1,300 copies left of Little Darlings. I know there's only standard editions left of this, but I think the rest of the releases, including the one that was announced that we're going to go over here today, has plenty of copies left. These are nice digibook, digipack releases, media book releases, whatever you want to refer to them. But I did order that one. Good evening, Jeff. Good evening. Great performance from Ray Liotta. I'm assuming you're meaning Narc. Yes, the late great Ray Liotta was in Narc. Jason Patrick is in Narc as well. The movie's directed by Joe Carnahan. A good neo-noir, like a really good, gritty neo-noir. I do recommend it to people. But that is it from that. Let's see what else we've got here. I guess we'll just start diving into the various slates. We got a lot to go through here, so please bear with me. I've got my Paul Newman fan club t-shirt on to give me a little extra Paul Newman magic to get through all of this. I tell you, it was a daunting task. I did take an extra day. Instead of streaming on Monday, I'm streaming here on Tuesday the 3rd, just so I could delve into primarily the Vinegar Syndrome and OCN partner label releases. There were 26 announcements on Sunday, September 1st, that happened right around noontime. And I'm like, I need an extra day to go through all of these, to watch a bunch of these, just so I have something to talk about. You know what I mean? Just so I have something to get into. And luckily I did, because all of the movies that I ended up watching were really, really good. And even the ones I didn't get to watch, I still, want to talk about. So we'll get to that probably at the end. That'll be the grand finale of it all. But let's get into, let's start off like chronologically. Literally, I think the day after the last episode, of Chasing Labels, Second Sight announced two future releases. They announced the Blair Witch Project, a limited edition 2-disc Blu-ray edition, and they also announced Late Night with the Devil, limited edition 4K UHD and Blu-ray set. These are both coming later this month. Late Night with the Devil is coming out October 28th, and Blair Witch Project is coming out November 11th. What is interesting is I did mention this when the Blair Witch Project had been announced. Was it by Umbrella, I believe? I think it was Umbrella. It was announced recently. I did say that I believe Second Sight was going to be releasing Blair Witch Project as well, and it was actually going to be, I think, the first time that the film was actually going to be put out on home media and look the way in which the filmmakers wanted it to look. I believe framing-wise and something like that. I think all of them had been, misaligned, misframed before. But this Second Sight release, of course, is going to be, that super deluxe limited edition that we've all come to know and love from Second Sight, loaded with special features, going to look fantastic. There's also a new feature-length documentary that I think is produced by Second Sight themselves about the movie. There's a new audio commentary by our friend here on Chasing Labels, Alexandra Heller-Nicholas, and Josh Nelson as well. There's a director's and producer's audio commentary, deleted scenes. I'm assuming a booklet as well. Yeah, 184-page hardback book. That's not a booklet. That is a legitimate book. 184 pages. That's pretty extensive. I don't think I need to explain the Blair Witch Project to people. It's a foundational found footage film from, I was going to say yesteryear. At this point, it is considered yesteryear. Let me see. I think Blair Witch came out in 1999, right around the turn of the century. And yeah, it was, profound at the time in terms of a horror film, and I think it stood the test of time, I would say. I mean, it's more historically fascinating, I think, now than ever. Just what you can do with indie film and indie horror and stuff like that. I've always been a fan of it. I've only ever had it on like a used DVD, so this is going to be revelatory in terms of quality of just edition of a film. But Late Night with the Devil is a movie that you can watch right now on Shudder. You can watch it on Shudder. It's a new film. I believe it's a film from this year. Late Night with the Devil, starring David Dastmalchian, who is a character actor who you've probably seen in a bunch of stuff. He was in The Dark Knight. He was in James Gunn's Suicide Squad. He shows up in a bunch of things, but this film is rather interesting. The synopsis is as thus: a live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. So basically, you got like this 70s talk show host, and he's going to like show someone on his show that is allegedly possessed. And what happens is things go awry. He brings on somebody who's one of those like debunkers who's trying to debunk this whole idea of demonic possession and stuff like that. And things go pretty wrong. That's the general gist. I like the style of the movie. It's shot to make it look like it's a 1977 television broadcast, like it was made in 1970s. Really interesting there. I rather really like it. If you have the Shudder streaming app, I would definitely give it a watch. It's going to be great to rewatch or watch around Halloween time. That makes a lot of sense for it to come out during that time. But let me see what we got here in terms of special features and such. Let's see. Clicking over to Second Sight. There are so many Second Sight releases that I still need to get, I'm slowly afraid that they're going to start going out of print, because these are limited. And these do sell out. These sell out everywhere. So we've got a new audio commentary, once again by Alexandra Heller-Nicholas and Josh Nelson, bringing their A game, an interview with directors Colin Cairns and Cameron Cairns. Mind If I Smoke, an interview with actor Ian Bliss. We're gonna make a horror movie, an interview with actor Ingrid Torelli. Extremely Lucky, an interview with actor Reese Autieri. Cult hits Zoe Rose Smith on Late Night with the Devil. And you got behind the scenes stuff, making of music video, and the South by Southwest Q&A with I believe the actor David S. Malkian and the two directors. A 120-page book coming with this. So another, once again, big thick book, which we love to see. That is Late Night with the Devil. That is the Blair Witch Project coming from Second Sight. These are available to pre-order on the website, but I know The Hitcher, which is coming out, I believe, this month, at the end of this month, you couldn't pre-order directly from their website because they guess weren't allowed to ship to the United States. I don't know. It sounds like a distribution deal issue or something like that. I don't know. But either way, it looks like these you can. So if you want either of these, definitely get those pre-orders in while you can, or pre-order from Orbit DVD or Diabolic DVD or Grindhouse Video. So that is Second Sight. Let's move on from Second Sight. Let's move on to someplace else. Let me move over. You know what? Let's go to Warner Archive. Let's go to Warner Archive just because they came out of nowhere, and I thought it would be nice to bring them in out of nowhere. So we've got the October releases of Warner Archive, which has now been redubbed or renamed on social media as Warner Classics. But they're still keeping the Warner Archive name for these releases, which, like I said, when it happened, is really nice. So first up here is a movie called The Walking Dead from 1936, and it is in no way related to the TV show or the comic book series The Walking Dead from the last, decade or so. It is a movie starring Boris Karloff. It's a movie, I believe, directed by Michael Curtiz. That's a note right there. And you've got, like I said, Boris Karloff. This is actually a really interesting movie. It only runs about 66 minutes long, so a super short watch. This is coming out October 29th, literally right in time for Halloween. So John Ellman, who is Boris Karloff, an ex-convict who was framed by the mob for the murder of the judge who first put him away. Evidence proving Ellman's innocence arrives seconds after he is electrocuted. So what happens is that he's framed for murder by some gangsters, some people who just basically want to get payback on this judge or whatever. And he ends up, and then Boris Karloff's character gets framed, gets executed, then gets brought back from the dead, but he's not quite right. You know what I mean? So that's the whole Walking Dead title part of this all. I won't give it a whole thing away. It's a 66 minute long movie, so you can kind of assume it's extremely lean, directly to the point, rather straightforward. Literally, the synopsis pretty much tells you, like 75% of what you need to know about the movie. But I watch Boris Karloff in anything. It's directed by Michael Curtiz, who is a kind of a legendary director. I have a Michael Curtiz section. I gotta, get it for that purpose. And I love Boris Karloff. I love Boris Karloff stuff. It's got a new 4K restoration from the original camera negative. That's awesome. No special features, nothing. A lot of these don't have any special features. I think, honestly, all of these have no special features. So that's kind of a bummer. Next is we have the return of Dr. X. So this is a sequel to Dr. X, kind of. No one, no character or actor makes a reappearance in this. It's not really connected to the first film in any way, other than title alone. So the return of Dr. X, in a bizarre but fascinating bit of casting, Humphrey Bogart stars in the movie. I won't describe here what they call it because it kind of gives away a little bit of the plot, but he is in this movie in a very small role. Like this movie I think came out in 1939. Wow, okay. So this was before Humphrey Bogart became the Humphrey Bogart that we all know. This was before he was in The Maltese Falcon, before he was in Casablanca, before he was in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, et cetera, you know what I mean? In the '30s, he was a small bit part actor, really. He played a lot of heavies and a lot of smaller roles like this. He's only on the screen 5 to 7 minutes in this movie, maybe, and I think I'm, like, overselling that time frame. He's in such little part of this movie. I believe it's also a movie he didn't really like to talk about when it came to retrospecting his career, because he just, didn't have much to say about it or just didn't really like the movie. The Return of Dr. X, it's not a great movie. It's more of a curiosity if you're a Humphrey Bogart completist and you want to check out all of Humphrey Bogart's work. If you want all of Humphrey Bogart's work, then it's kind of worth it for that. But it's not really a great movie. So what happens is, um, wow, they really just give away the whole plot in this description. I can't really say this. Is that people are disappearing or people are showing up dead with all of their blood drained, and it's because they all have a specific type of blood. And the specific type of blood is being used in a specific scientific, like mad scientific way. And there's this newspaper man, this reporter who's kind of tracking this down. Like he's digging deep and trying to figure out what's going on. He starts off with finding a woman's body and then writing about it in the newspaper, and then the cops come and then the body's gone. And he's like, "Why she was here? Where did she go?" And then she shows up like alive like later on. So it's like what's going on here when it comes to death and life, and what's going on here when it comes to um yeah, people being revived from the dead somehow. You know what I mean? Or what's going on? So the movie's getting into that. It's another short run film, 62 minutes long. It's even shorter than the previous film we talked about. It's even shorter than The Walking Dead. But that's The Return of Dr. X. Not really great. Next is The Beast with Five Fingers. I also want to say that Return of Dr. X 4K restoration from the original camera negative again. The Beast with Five Fingers. This movie stars Peter Lorre is in this film. He's the highlight of this movie. He is the real highlight of this movie. So Hillary Cummings, the devoted secretary to wheelchair-bound piano virtuoso Francis Ingram, has a passion for the occult. Pouring through every book on the supernatural he can find in Ingram's vast library, Hillary begins to imagine strange and terrifying things. Hillary is the Peter Lorre character. But after Ingram's tragic death, the line between reality and unimaginable terror is blurred as the severed hand from Ingram's corpse begins killing everyone in the villa. So, yes, it is a possessed hand murdering people movie. As weird as that may sound. Um, it's something that's been done in horror movies before. Well, after this, where some type of appendage will come back from the dead, a severed hand, a severed head, something like that will come back to haunt or maim or do whatever to people. You know what I mean? And this movie that happens, and Peter Lorre is seeing it, and he's hearing the piano being played, and he's kind of losing his mind. He's great in this movie. He's kind of the reason to watch this movie. It's a fun watch. It's a really fun watch. If you're a fan of Peter Lorre, I'd recommend it. I would really recommend it. It's yeah, it's fun. So let me go back and see what else is on the list from Warner Archive. Oh, for your consideration. For your consideration is a Christopher Guest movie. So if you're a fan of A Mighty Wind, Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, the movies like that, for your consideration is right up your alley. Like this is your type of movie. If you know the type of comedy that Christopher Guest you're gonna have a fun time for your consideration. I watched this movie years ago. It came out in 2006. And I think I watched it streaming somewhere. It was either on the Criterion Channel or it was on Filmstruck or TCM on demand or something like that. But it's a Christopher Guest movie. It's got the usual people in it: Ed Begley Jr., Jennifer Coolidge, Bob Balaban. I mean, it's got the usual just group of people who are in a lot of Christopher Guest stuff. Great ensemble cast, great ensemble comedy. Just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's satirizing like the Academy Awards and the Oscars. Hence the title of the movie, For Your Consideration, and that typical Christopher Guest mockumentary style. So yeah, this is gonna go right into my Christopher Guest section. It really is. This was a nice surprise, a real nice surprise. This is coming out October 29th as well. I think these are all coming out October 29th, to be honest. Yeah, looks like all October 29th. Um, and then we've got a movie called Sweethearts, which I did not get to see. I did not get to see this at all. This is a Technicolor film, directed by W.S. Van Dyke and Robert Z. Leonard. A team behind a successful Broadway production tries to stop the married stars from transitioning to Hollywood. It's starring Jeanette MacDonald, Nelson Eddy, Frank Morgan, Ray Bolger, Florence Rice, and Misha Auer. I did not get to see this movie, so I don't know much about it, other than the director is really good, and it's a Technicolor film, so it's definitely something up my alley. So Broadway's Gwen Marlowe and Ernest Lane are sweethearts on stage as stars of Victor Herbert's operetta and offstage as happily marrieds. Then Hollywood beckons, and their fretful stage producer puts the kibosh on any Tinseltown plans by trumping up a romantic triangle that sets the lovebirds feuding. Notable as Metro Goldwyn Mayer's, MGM's first feature film shot in three-color Technicolor process, a 24-karat golden age singing team of Jeanette MacDonald and Nelson Eddy are at their absolute best in this lavish, gossamer weight box office smash glittering with songs that highlight their superb voices. Director W.S. Van Dyke provides sophistication. The Dorothy Parker, Alan Campbell script provides a rapier wit, and the Oscar-winning cinematography provides proof the ravishing red-haired MacDonald was born for Technicolor. That's interesting. It's the first three-strip Technicolor that MGM did. So this was 1938. So this was right before the year of Technicolor in 1939, which had The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. Interesting. You know what I mean? Very interesting. I love Technicolor, the old school Technicolor, three-strip Technicolor. There's something just ravishingly gorgeous about it. It's interesting how a lot of the original elements for those films are no longer around, so we're kind of dealing with less than perfect elements when it comes to restorations and things like that. But here they make note that the 4K restoration was from the Technicolor Separation Master Positives. So that's interesting. So they don't have the original, negative or anything like that. All they have is the positive, which is, work with what you have. Work with the best things you can find at this point in 2024. Save what you can. So that is it for Warner Archive. They do have a television series here, A Man Called Shenandoah. I'll just show that. It's a 4-disc set, new 4K restoration from original camera negative. It's a Western series from 1965. I believe looks like it ran for one season, 1965 to 1966. I'm glad that they're starting to do that through their Warner Archive line. That Warner Brothers is putting out a lot of their older catalog TV series on Blu-ray through their Warner Archive line. And just in general, I'm a big fan of TV on home video, TV on DVD, TV on Blu-ray, TV on 4K, which is slowly becoming a thing. I mean, we still need to get to that Blu-ray stage before we can get to the 4K stage, but any progress is better than no progress. But we've got some other comments here before we move on from Warner Archive. Josie's here. Hello, Josie. Let's see. What has Josie been up to? I just finished reading Speculation by Nisi Shawl. I think Shawl, great book. Nice. Let's see. Another good book I read recently was Spindlefish and Stars by Christian Andrews. Nice. I'm always looking for new things to add to my reading list. I actually did some thrift store book buying recently. I got 2 stacks of books that I went through. I love doing book shopping at thrift stores because you find the books so much cheaper than in regular bookstores and online, and sometimes you find them in near perfect condition or pretty close to perfect condition, which is super awesome. I also live in a college heavy area, So there's so many books that I'm assuming students have to get for school that they just don't want after, so they just, you know, donate them to the local thrift stores and whatnot. So that's when I scoop in. That's when I swoop in, scoop up stuff. Is all that stuff. So first time watches for Josie. Let's see, 1201. From 1993, Horrors of the Malformed Man from 1969, Captain Clegg. I've talked about Captain Clegg. Story of a 3-Day Past is very good from 1967. That's a very good movie. The Good Times Kid from 2005, Gattaca from 97. Gattaca is a great movie. Gattaca is a fascinating movie. I've been wanting to rewatch it for years. I've been wanting to upgrade it for years. I have the old Blu-ray of it somewhere. I think it's in. I'm looking over at my drama section now. I think it's there, or it's someplace else. I think that's Gattaca right there. Yep, that's Gattaca. I'm looking at it. It is in the drama section. Okay. So that's Gattaca. Quartermass Experiment. I don't think I've ever seen that, but I've seen that on so many lists, and I've seen the Blu-ray be listed so many times. What else do we have here? Let's see. Well, have I seen any of these and thoughts? So I did see, like I said, I did see a few of these. Gattaca definitely is a highlight. Jude Law is in that film. Let me look up Gattaca really quick, just because it's been years since I've seen it. Fascinating kind of sci-fi drama. It's Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, Jude Law. Elias Koteas is in the film. It's directed by Andrew Niccol, a rather underrated director in my opinion. Andrew Niccol directed he directed Lord of War, the Nicolas Cage film, which I think is also rather underrated. People check that out if you can. It's been released on DVD, Blu-ray, and I think 4K now. That's a good Nicolas Cage film. I think he's known mostly for writing. Andrew Niccol is. I think he worked on he has a written by credit for The Truman Show. Yeah, he's written by credit for The Truman Show. But let's see what else we've got here. Let's see. We've just talked about Warner Archive. Let me look at my notes. Let me go back to my notes here. Okay, let's go over to Kino, because they've got a long list of stuff. Where did I put? Oh, that is the Kino tab. So, Kino. Let's start off where we ended last time. So this is a movie coming out from 1963 called Enough Rope. It's got a 4K restoration, new audio commentary by David Del Valle and Donna M. Reams. From the pen of acclaimed American novelist Patricia Highsmith. That's why I want to mention it. Patricia Highsmith, who, of course, her books have been adapted into several films. I mean, The Talented Mr. Ripley just got a Netflix miniseries adaptation. So it's still happening to this day. So from the pen of acclaimed American novelist Patricia Highsmith comes this rare gem of French neo-noir, Enough Rope, or Le Meurtrier, directed by Claude Autant-Lara, who directed Devil in the Flesh. Cool title. In a world inhabited by killers and cheats, architect Walter Sicard is unhappily married to Clara. His idle interest in the spousal murder case of bookseller Melchior Kimmel becomes something more intense when the accused is acquitted and Walter, who believes him guilty, strikes up his acquaintance. When Clara is found dead, Kimmel in turn believes Walter responsible, while a detective suspects the two deaths to be connected in this twisting, suspense-drenched masterpiece of mainstream French cinema, made at the height of the Nouvelle Vague, which is the new wave. Co-starring Marina Valeri, and based on Highsmith's third novel, The Blunderer. I have to read, speaking of books earlier, I have to read Patricia Highsmith's work. I know I have a copy of The Talented Mr. Ripley. I know speaking of a thrift shop book buy from a few years ago, I know I have it. But I have to get her other books because I've just been interested in her work for many, many years. So that's Enough Rope, an interesting French film. Next, we got details on the the Rules of Engagement, which I've talked about already. Rules of Engagement is getting a 4K UHD release. It's coming out October 22nd, and we've got basically a list of these special features. It's a 2-disc edition, 4K UHD disc, as well as a Blu-ray. It's coming from brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master from 4K Scan, the original camera negative. Audio commentary by the late, great director William Friedkin himself. That's awesome. And that's it for special features. Oh, no, there's a look inside interviews with cast and crew. Sorry, I lied. There's that. But this is, yes, like I said, this is a William Friedkin film. I got to get this movie. I talked about it when it was announced, so I won't really delve into it too much. It's dealing with a military court case predominantly in it. But next we've got, once again, another film noir box set. Film noir is heavy on the Kino Lorber slate for this fall and in the future. This is Film Noir, The Dark Side of Cinema, Volume 25. We just talked about the previous 3 in I think the last episode. So of Chasing Labels. So we're back here once again. So we've got The Flame from 1947, The City That Never Sleeps from 1953, and then Hell's Half Acre from 1954. These are all Paramount films, and these are all from 2017 HD Masters by Paramount. So this is from the Kino and Paramount deal that they've got going on. That's where these movies are from. The Flame, yeah, I was gonna say it's The Flame, City That Never Sleeps, and Hell's Half Acre. The only one of these films I think I've seen is The City That Never Sleeps. And it's good. These are fine. These are fine noirs. You know what I mean? These aren't the top flight A-list noirs, but they're good. If you're a fan of noir and you're like a noir completist, or if you just want an array of noir films in your collection, then these box sets are affordable and they're of decent quality, and the movies are okay. So you're kind of good here. Get these. I wouldn't say as cheap as you get, but I think if I was buying them, frequently as many others do, the $20 to $25 range for these is probably great. You know what I mean? I think you want to keep it around, $10 and under per movie. That's just my philosophy. But if you've got the cash to pay full price for these, go right ahead. Go right ahead. But then moving on from there, we've got Scars of Dracula. This is a Christopher Lee as Dracula film. There are several Christopher Lee as Dracula films from Hammer Horror, and this is one of them. This most recently and currently, you can still get this release, was put out by Shout Studios. This was just part of their going out of print sale, was Scars of Dracula. And obviously we know why it was going out of print, because the rights have been scooped up by Kino. So Kino is putting their version of this out, but not only are they re-releasing it on Blu-ray, they're giving this a 4K UHD release. So that will be an upgrade over the Blu-ray release that Shout Studios was putting out. When it comes to special features, they haven't given us any type of details about that. We don't even have a date yet for when this is coming out. It just says coming soon. So this could be out next year for all we know. But I will buy anything Christopher Lee and Dracula related. You know what I mean? Christopher Lee as Dracula. You know what I mean? I've got several of them in my collection. I still need to get a few more of those Hammer films. Warner Brothers has put out a few of them here, and I've got to get my hands on those. But yeah, I'm all in on Christopher Lee every time one of his movies comes out. So moving on from there, we've got a movie called Fright, from 1971. This is coming out October 22nd on 4K UHD. Now, this movie has already gotten a release someplace else. Let me take a look here. Fright 1971. Yeah, so this movie has a Blu-ray release from Shout Factory in 2019. This is another one that Shout Factory / Shout Studios had already put this out on Blu-ray a number of years ago, and then no longer have the rights. So I'm assuming Kino has scooped up the rights and putting it out in 4K UHD. Now, like I said, I think this actually has a date. Yeah, this actually has a date. This has a date of October 22nd. We're getting it's a 4K UHD disc, a Blu-ray disc, 2018 UHD SDR master, so not a Dolby Vision, not HDR, from a 4K scan of the 35 millimeter original camera negative. I have to assume that's the same master that Shout used for their release, and it's got a new commentary by film historian Howard S. Berger. And then an interview with film historian Kim Newman as well on the Blu-ray. Now, this is an interesting movie. It is a British film. So teenage babysitter Amanda arrives at the Lloyd home to watch their young son for the evening, but it seems that the strangely nervous Mrs. Lloyd is hiding a shocking secret, a secret that has just escaped from a nearby insane asylum and is now desperately trying to get inside the house. What depraved desires must Amanda endure to survive the ultimate night of fright? So, with that premise, we've got the idea that it sounds like an 80s slasher. Sounds like a slumber party massacre or something like that. And the premise is very similar. You got this babysitter who's babysitting this kid, and then all of a sudden an intruder tries to get in and she has to survive. That's the premise of the movie. There's a lot more going into that as to who this is in relation to the situation, all of that stuff. But it's got that 80s slasher feel with the combination of like a 70s gritty horror. This is 1971. This predates, a Texas Chainsaw. This predates something like Straw Dogs, which is kind of a gritty, movie. Actually, not kind of. It is a gritty movie. So it's got that type of vibe to it. So you get that combination of 70s and 80s horror into one, which I rather like that style. The movie is incredibly dark and disturbing and psychological and messed up. So it could very well be for many of you listening to the podcast right now or watching. This would make a very interesting addition to someone's horror collection. I rather like. I don't say I rather like the movie. I thought it was good for what it is. Like I said, that combination of those two different styles are really nice. Let's see. So that is Fright. Let me go back to where I was. Oh yeah. So that is Fright 4K UHD release. I want to mention this briefly. Wolfman's Got Nards is coming out on Blu-ray October 22nd. This is the documentary about Monster Squad. You know what I mean? The movie Monster Squad. This is actually a special feature that is on the Monster Squad 4K UHD release that Kino has put out. So they've already released this, and they're just kind of taking it from that and putting it on its own disc and having people buy it. So I guess if you don't want or don't have that release, you can still get this documentary. But I would think that most of you listening and most of you watching and just most of you who are fans of Monster Squad have that 4K UHD release already. So this is kind of irrelevant. I mean, it's nice. It's a nice thought. I think this also has like interviews with the director as well. It's got writer, producer, actor Adam F. Goldberg on 80s movies for a 5-minute special feature. Writer, producer, director Fred Decker on movies, 9 minutes and 10-second of footage. Actor, writer, producer Seth Green on pop culture. Writer, director, actor Shane Black on Myth for 13 minutes. In the Goddamn Club, more with the fans of the Monster Squad. So you're not only getting that documentary, you're getting a lot of extra supplements as well. So I guess that's the extra boost that you get here by getting this by itself. Not just having the documentary. Because the documentary itself is 88 minutes long. So it's a feature-length documentary. Actually, let me make sure that I'm not making all of this up. So, speaking of which, I still need to get that Monster Squad release. That's something that would be nice to watch during the Halloween season. I'm getting kind of in the mood for Halloween. Yeah, the Monster Squad. Yeah, it has its own Blu-ray disc in the Monster Squad 4K UHD release. So whether all of those I don't know if all of those come on all those extra stuff come on that disc as well, or if they're just exclusive to this standalone release. But either way, that documentary is part of that Monster Squad 4K UHD release. Um, so that's interesting. I just want to mention that briefly. So moving on from there, we've got some other stuff here that they've already announced that they've just kind of giving us details about. The Court Martial of Billy Mitchell. I talked about that movie extensively already from 1955, starring Gary Cooper. That Blu-ray is coming out October 22nd. It's got an audio commentary by film historian Steve Mitchell and Combat Films American realism author Stephen J. Rubin. That's coming with a slipcover, and then you've got the movie with William Holden and Deborah Carr. This is a must-buy for me, to be straight with you all. The Proud and the Profane. New audio commentary by film historian Steve Mitchell and Combat Films American realism author Stephen J. Rubin. I feel like I'm repeating myself, which I am. So this is a movie with anything with William Holden, Deborah Carr. I have to have it. I have to have it. So let's move on from there real quick. Cross Creek I talked about already. That's coming out October 15th. That's the movie starring Mary Steenburgen, Rip Torn, Peter Coyote. It's about the author of the movie The Yearling, how she moved to a secluded rural area and then got the inspiration to write that book. Then we've got a new release, new-ish release. This is Kino Cult number 17. This is the movie Hussy, starring Helen Mirren. This I did watch. This is getting a new audio commentary by film historian and friend of the show, Kat Ellinger. I could say that. She's been on here twice, I believe, on Chasing Labels. She's awesome. Anything Kat Ellinger has put her name on or is part of as a special feature or anything like that, it gets a seal of approval. So it's something worth watching or worth listening to or worth getting. And this is the movie Hussy, starring Helen Mirren. This is an interesting film. This is an early film in Helen Mirren's career, from 1980. We're going all the way back to 1980. This was before she was in The Long Good Friday. And yeah, she's in the movie. So Betty who is portrayed by Helen Mirren, is a prostitute working out of a high-class London cabaret where Emery is a technician. They begin an affair encumbered by her job, his lack of money, and their past. She has an abusive former lover. She has a 10-year-old son. And basically this movie is kind of about these two people trying to have this relationship, but with all of these various, things going on in their lives, and how much that impacts them being able to be together. And so it's a movie that's a romance drama, all of that stuff. The movie does have extent, it's dealing with prostitution, it's dealing with the cabaret, it's risque, it's women walking around in various, revealing clothing. There's a lot of nudity in the film as well, sex scenes, things like that. So if that is something that's, interests you as a viewer, then you'll get a lot of that in this. I think that's what puts it in the Kino Cult area of it all, is the risqueness of the nudity and stuff like that. But when it comes to a lot of the other Kino Cult stuff that I've seen, this is very tame by comparison. Very tame by comparison. Certainly, the first couple of releases that they had that was directed by Jess Franco, it's nothing like that. Nothing like that. But yeah, if you're a fan of Helen Mirren, you should give this movie a watch. So that is Hussy. And then we got I've already talked about Meryl Streep in the movie Plenty. The classic Ghost, the 1970s Gothic television. I talked about that last time. This is actually Kino Cult number 18. That's new information, coming out October 27th. It's 5 episodes on 2 dual layer discs. It interviews with a bunch of people in here. With a bunch of contributors. It's very Amanda Reyes, who's from Made for TV Mayhem. I know who she is. She has an interview on here. So yeah, this is an interesting release. I talked about it a little bit last time, but we got more information about it. Like I said, basically 5 TV movies on 2 discs. all from 1973. Next, we have Baby Blood, which is Kino Cult number 19. This is a 4K UHD release. Um, so you got two discs here. Um, this is a kind of this is a cult kind of gory movie. Um, think of like it looks like something like in the vein of Basket Case. Think of something like that, or even something like I was gonna say Brain Dead, but not Brain Dead. It's that other Brain movie from Arrow that I can't quite remember here. Um, let's see. I'm moving right along. I'm sorry, I'm going through these really quickly because we got so much to talk about. And a lot of these are things I just didn't get a chance to see or don't know much about. But this movie I did see before. This is Arabesque from 1966. This is a movie starring Gregory Peck and Sophia Loren. They released this on Blu-ray a couple of years ago, and now they're upgrading it to 4K UHD release. This is coming out October 29th. This is a romance espionage film with Gregory Peck and Sophia Loren, directed by Stanley Donen, who did Singing in the Rain. He did Charade, a bunch of other movies as well. And I really like this movie. An American hieroglyphics professor, Gregory Peck, is hired by a mysterious Arab oil magnate to decipher a secret message. When the hidden meaning is revealed, the chase is on as he and the oil magnate's exotic yet unpredictable companion, Sophia Loren, find themselves caught in the middle of an assassination plot. The great Stanley Donen directed this exciting romantic thriller that features the stylish music of Henry Mancini, who did The Pink Panther, Touch of Evil. He did a bunch of other things, and the acting talents of Alan Bedell from Force 10 from Navarone. So this is a fun movie. It's a fun, like I said, espionage romance thriller. Um, it's kind of like Stanley Donen doing a Hitchcock film, like a North by Northwest, but with Gregory Peck and Sophia Loren. The 4K I hope is going to look fantastic. The Blu-ray I think looked okay. I don't have it, but I've coincidentally been wanting to buy it for a while because it was in uh, uh those various Kino sales that they've been doing. And it always is in there for like rather cheap. And I'm like, should I get it? Should I not get it? Luckily, I waited, and the 4K is coming out of it. Next, we've got a Barbara Stanwyck film, also starring Ray Milland, and this is California in Technicolor. California from 1947. Barbara Stanwyck, Ray Milland. Let me see if I can get a. It's coming in November. Doesn't even give us a date. Let me see if I can get a synopsis of this because I am incredibly intrigued by it. It is available to watch on Tubi right now if you want to give this movie a watch. If you're a big fan of Ray Milland and Barbara Stanwyck, epic account of how California became a state, featuring a wagon train, the gold rush, a wicked saloon queen, and an evil profiteer. Directed by John Farrow. John Farrow, he pops up every now and then. He directed Around the World in 80 Days. Well, a couple of sequences in there. He directed The Big Clock. He's directed a bunch of like lesser film noirs. That's kind of a mean thing to say, but he's directed Botany Bay, Hondo with John Wayne, Submarine Command, His Kind of Woman, Red Mountain. So you've seen like his name around here. Where Danger Lives, Alias Nick Beale, Night Has a Thousand Eyes with Edward G. Robinson. That movie is being put out by everyone, seemingly. It's got a Blu-ray book coming out from everywhere. But yeah, so you understand what I'm saying. He's a workman's director. He's kind of an everyman director. He just constantly working, a working director. He also directed The Five Came Back, um, things like that. So this is definitely intriguing to me. This is a movie that I buy when it's on sale at one of their sales for like under $10. And I'll buy it just because, like, oh, I know Barbara Stanwyck, I know Ray Milland. That's how I buy a lot of that stuff. The blind buy stuff. I go by who was in it or who's directed it. That's how I make the judgments. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Moving back here, that's California. What else do we've got here? Oh, Danger Diabolic. So Danger Diabolic, that cult film, is getting a 4K UHD release. And it just says coming soon. Doesn't tell us when. but directed by Mario Bava, who directed Black Sunday, Black Sabbath, The Whip in the Body, Planet of the Vampires, and Bay of Blood. You know who Mario Bava is. Well, many of you should know or do know, but those of you who don't should know who Mario Bava is. Um, so yeah, this is Danger Diabolik. This movie, I believe, has been released before a few times. Let me take a look. Danger Diabolik. Yeah, it's been released back in 2020 by Shout Factory. This is another Shout Factory, Shout Studio release that's getting a re-release from Kino. Let me see if it got a release in other places. Yeah, I believe it's been released in in Australia. It looks like it got it. Yeah, it got an imprint release in Australia back in 2020. It was imprint release number 12. So that's an early release from them. So this is getting a 4K UHD release sometime in the future from um Kino, Danger Diabolik, Mario Bava. I have a feeling this is going to sell very well. Um I just have that feeling. So, and now lastly here, which was announced a few or now announced yesterday, is Top Copy. The movie, I believe the MGM film. Yes, a skillful blend of romance, adventure, and comedy from Jules Dassin. I need to get this movie now. The legendary director of the classic heist film Rififi and a bunch of other movies, actually. Fun-filled, suspenseful. It's an incredibly ingenious affair and a considerable pleasure to watch. Trouble brews beneath the exotically curved towers of Istanbul when the equally exotic and equally curved Elizabeth Lipp, Melinda Mercury, recruits her former lover, Maximilian Schell, in a scheme to heist the pride of the city's top copy museum, a jewel-encrusted dagger, but the job soon turns into a high-tension, high-wire act when the bumbling fall guy and other amateurs they've hired as help get more than they bargained for. The stellar cast also includes Robert Morley, Jess Hahn, and Akim Tamarov. Interesting. I've got a feeling. I'm to see if I've seen this movie before. Hold on. Is it Top Copy? Let's see. So I have seen this. Okay, so I've seen this. Yeah, this is the Jules Dassin film from 1964. He liked to do those heist movies. Like you just mentioned, he did a Rififi, but he also did Night in the City. He also did Brute Force, which is a great film. Um, I've seen a lot of Jules Dassin stuff. I have a few Jules Dassin in my collection as well. This is one I'm definitely going to be adding. Um, yeah, so that's a nice surprise. That's a nice surprise. It's getting it's brand new 4K restoration by MGM, audio commentary by film historian, writer Julie Kirgo, and writer filmmaker Peter Hankoff. It's got a slipcover here, which for the slipcover enthusiasts like myself will love to see that. Yeah, I want to see if Top Copy. I think this may be a re-release. Hold on. Yeah, Top Copy has been released back in 2014 by Kino. So this is a re-release of a movie they came out with 10 years ago. Jeez. That seems like forever ago at this point. Yep. So, Alias Nick Beale, Jeff asks here, how is Alias Nick Beale? Many times I've almost bought it. You know how many times I've almost bought that movie myself? Many times. I don't think I've seen Alias Nick Beale. Hold on. I've seen so many film noirs, I forget which ones I have seen. So, I have not seen Alias Nick Beale from 1949, although I've also almost bought it on so many occasions because it is always cheap and always on sale. And I always see it on like film noir movie lists. I've always seen it like on there kicking around. I gotta give it a watch. Maybe, Noirvember is coming up. It's coming up in November. Maybe that'll be something I watch for Noirvember. Or maybe I'll get the Blu-ray and I'll watch it for an unwatched pile or something. This seems like an interesting idea. Speaking of the unwatched pile, We did our most recent episode on Watch Pile number 15 last week, last Tuesday, a week from today, a week ago today. Steven and I did it solo. We usually have a guest on, but due to scheduling and things like that, we just did it with ourselves. Just us, sharing some movies and sharing some things we would pair up with the movies that we watched for the first time. I watched the movie Heaven's Gate, the extremely long Michael Cimino film from the late 1970s, and I paired it up with Matewan, the John Sayles film, much shorter John Sayles film. So that was a fun time. But moving on from there, let's see what else we've got. Let me look at my notes. So Kino had a lot. We did Warner Archive. You know what? Let's go to Imprint. Let's go sail across the water to Imprint. Imprint had quite a week in the last week. So they first of all teased us with their first 4K UHD releases that they were going to put out that's part of their Imprint line. They've not delved into 4K yet, at least from my recollection, and they are as of these releases, they are 368 releases into their Imprint line. So they hadn't put out a 4K until now, until these four, until 365, 66, 67, 68. So they basically teased us and then released one per day of these really super deluxe 4K UHD releases. And when I mean super deluxe, these are not only expensive, but they are loaded special features release, and they really went all out. The first one they announced was Convoy, the Sam Peckinpah film Convoy. This is actually commercially Sam Peckinpah's most successful movie. It made, I think, the most money of any movie that he ever made. And to me, it's his most un-Sam Peckinpah-esque type of movie. It's kind of his most, I wouldn't say bland. Bland sounds so negative. But when I think of Sam Peckinpah, this is not necessarily the movie I think of. Convoy came out in 1978. There's been a Blu-ray released here in the US by Kino back in 2015, and there was a release by Studio Canal on Blu-ray in 2013, and coincidentally, the master that was used for the 2015 Kino release of Convoy was the one that Studio Canal used in 2013. So this movie was in desperate need of some type of remastered re-release, and that's what we got here in 4K UHD from Imprint. This is Imprint number 368, Convoy. It has all of the special features that at least the Kino release has, plus a lot more. So that's what really makes this film worth it. So HDR10 presentation on 4K restored from the original elements by Studio Canal. That leads me to believe, let me go take a quick look here, that Convoy will be getting, Convoy is getting a 4K Steelbook by Studio Canal on October 28th. So that will be coming this year. And then we will be getting this release. When does it say? I think that's coming around the same time. Hold on. Why don't they have it? So Convoy 4K. November 27th. November 27th, this release from Imprint is coming out. Studio Canal, October 28th. Convoy 4K. Australia, Imprint, November 27th. So whichever one you want. Obviously, I think the one from Australia is more expensive because it comes with more stuff. And that more stuff is, like I said, 4K restoration. We got a new audio commentary by filmmaker slash Peckinpah scholar Mike Siegel. Passion and Poetry, Sam Trucker's movie. This is on the Kino release, but this is a new 2024 revision, and they're upscaling the quality of that documentary. That's a 70-minute film by Mike Siegel with Chris Christopherson and Ali MacGraw, Ernest Borgnine. Then you get new 3 Lost Scenes, new in-jokes, friends, and cameos, guest appearances, in-jokes featurette, trucker notes from Norway, Norwegian trucker expert talking about the Mack truck. You've got Sam Peckinpah in Portugal. You've got a new filming convoy part 1, part 2, part 3. I think these are all just rare behind the scenes photos. That's probably, I'm guessing, a slideshow. Then you get, this is coming on 3 discs. So first disc 4K UHD, second disc is a Blu-ray, third disc is a Blu-ray as well. I believe, yeah. So the third disc, I think, has the 115-minute extended cut of the movie, as opposed to the theatrical cut, which is not 115 minutes. Hold on. Be nice if they just made this. Let's see. 111 minutes, I believe, is the theatrical cut. So yeah, this is a super deluxe edition coming out now November 27th. It's expensive. It's not cheap. But obviously with Imprint, we know that their stuff, the quality is there with a lot of their stuff. So that's Convoy. Let me move over to what they've got cooking next. A Bridge Too Far. A Bridge Too Far in 1977. Epic military action war movie. 176 minutes long. This is a long movie. I had actually never seen this movie. I've never owned it, even though this is something that's right up my alley. I should make mention of what actually Convoy is about. Convoy stars Chris Christopherson, Ali MacGraw, Ernest Borgnine, and basically Chris Christopherson is this trucker who is being chased by Ernest Borgnine from Texas to New Mexico to Arizona. He's getting chased by Ernest Borgnine. To be frank with all of you, it reminded me a heck of a lot of Smokey and the Bandit, but with Chris Christopherson as the Burt Reynolds character and Ernest Borgnine as the sheriff that's chasing him. The sheriff that was portrayed by Jackie Gleason. Then you have Ali MacGraw is the Sally Field character. It's kind of the same movie for the most part. The premise is a little bit different. It's a little bit darker of a movie than Smokey and the Bandit. Smokey and the Bandit is just kind of a straight fun comedy, like start to finish. Whereas this movie tries to do some darker stuff, especially when it comes to like police brutality and police tactics, like opening fire with machine guns and like beating up people, and the police do, and things like that. That's not so much in Smokey and the Bandit. It's not. So Convoy is kind of more straighter Smokey and the Bandit, if you will. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily worse or better or anything like that, but I just noticed that they're very similar movies. Apparently there's a big like CB radio like popularity in the 70s, so they tried to capitalize on that popularity by making movies that featuring CB radios. Smokey and the Bandit, this film, and then a couple of other trucking type of movies. Maybe that's why this movie like did so well at the box office. Also, it came out a year after Smokey and the Bandit, so if Smokey and the Bandit was a big hit, then this movie kind of riding that movie's popularity coattails at the box office. But moving on from there, we have A Bridge Too Far. Bridge Too Far to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the infamous World War II mission, Operation Market Garden, that happened in September of 1944. We are proud to announce the newly scanned and restored 4K UHD release of Richard Attenborough's 1977 epic A Bridge Too Far. Shot on location in the Netherlands, this BAFTA-winning film is one of the great World War II epics based on the book by Cornelius Ryan and assembled an enormous league of screen legends. Excuse me. Dirk Bogarde, James Caan, Michael Caine, Sean Connery, Elliot Gould, Edward Fox, Gene Hackman, Anthony Hopkins, Laurence Olivier, Ryan O'Neal, Robert Redford, and Liv Ullmann. This brand new 4K restoration comes loaded with brand new and archival special features and is housed in a strictly limited edition 3-disc hard box with an exclusive booklet. Disc 1, the 4K UHD, new Dolby Vision presentation, restored from the original camera negative, audio commentary by William Goldman and main crew, trivia track. Disc 2, audio commentary, same one from before, same trivia track. Then the disc 3 is where you get all the special features. New interview with camera operator Peter McDonald. New interview with John Birmingham and appreciation on the score. New Attenborough at War featurette. New long-term collaborator Tony Jackson. Remember cinematographer Jeffrey Unsworth. Interview with actor Elliot Gould. That's pretty awesome. And then you get a bunch of archival stuff here. I won't go through all of them. Then there's a booklet as well. A Bridge Too Far, I think, had a Blu-ray here many years ago. Bridge Too Far. Apparently that's not how you spell that. Oh, I spelt it wrong. Hold on. I want to check to see when that came out. So A Bridge Too Far, yeah. A Bridge Too Far had a Blu-ray release here in 2009. I remember it being kind of ridiculed for not having the best video quality. And they've never re-released it in any remastered version here in the U.S. Region A land. They just kept recycling that same disc over and over again in 2014 and 2010. So, yeah, this is a much-needed restoration, So that is A Bridge Too Far, epic stuff here. Then we've got the movie The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert from 1994. Limited edition 4K UHD plus Blu-ray, imprint collection number 366. This has 2 Blu-rays as well as a 4K disc. They came, they conquered, they looked fabulous. The colorful moving extravaganza was a box office smash, starring Terence Stamp, Hugo Weaving, Guy Pearce as 3 drag performers braving the vast, rugged Australian outback. So you've got Hugo Weaving, Terence Stamp, and Guy Pearce, and they are driving across the Australian outback to do a show or to do a series of shows. And they end up going on this kind of road trip adventure. They end up getting stuck. They end up in like small towns that aren't too kindly to them. They end up meeting interesting people along the way. There's great music in the movie. There's great costumes. There's great performances in this movie. I really like this movie a lot. This movie was great. Fantastic. Won an Academy Award for costume design. That makes sense. And if you're wondering who Priscilla is, they named this kind of beat up van that they're driving through Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. That's the name of the van that they're driving across the outback in. I thought that was really ingenious. So we've got first disc 4K UHD, restored from the original camera negative, audio commentary by director Stephen Elliott. Second disc is the Blu-ray with the same audio commentary. Then you've got the special features on the third disc, Between a Frock and a Hard Place, a feature documentary from 2015. New interview with the director, Stephen Elliott. New interview with actor Mark Holmes. It says more special features to be, TBA, you know what I mean? And then you got a bunch of like archival featurettes here. I would love if they were able to get into new interviews with all of those actors. That would be something that would be awesome. It's got an exclusive booklet with new essay. Really cool. This is something I definitely want. But their fourth and their biggest, and the one that kind of laid the hammer down when it came to, I would say, not only releases for this crop from imprint, but I think one of maybe the best releases of the year when it's all said and done. We will see when the end of the year comes around. Is the Never Ending Story 4K UHD release. This is a 5-disc release. Well, let's get into it. Hold on for a second. I gotta refresh my eyes here. Um, I have chronic dry eyes, so I have to like constantly be, refreshing them throughout the day. Um, it's it's a thing. It's a thing. Some days they're better than others. Some days they're not. Obviously, staring at a computer screen for as long as I have to when doing this leads to them drying out faster. I've been dealing with this since I was a little kid, so it's nothing new to me. But what is new, nice transition there, thank you very much, is this Never Ending Story 40th Anniversary Limited Edition. So this is coming in a gigantic deluxe book type packaging. I don't know if it's sold out already or if the pre-orders sold out. It's expensive, guys. It's a really expensive release, and I understand why. 5 discs, gigantic book type packaging. It's got a bunch of swags coming with it as well. This is a beloved 1980s classic. I grew up with it. Many of you at home probably grew up with it. Nostalgia is gonna drive this sales of this through the roof. But here we go here. So, celebrate the 40th anniversary of one of the most beloved films of all time in this limited edition definitive set, a 5 disc journey into the depths of the Wonderland world of Fantasia, based on the book by Michael Ende. Our strictly limited edition replica storybook packaging, that's what I just talked about, is crafted with high quality leather adorned with the iconic Auron emblem, die cast metallic ornamentation, red and white ribbons, gold foiled stamping, and embossed detailing exactly as seen in the film. It is magnetically sealed to ensure it stays closed. This is a heavy bespoke collector's item measuring. It's big. I'm not gonna break this down here by measurements, but it's an A4 reproduction of the original 1984 press kit comes with this. A full color matte laminated 27 by 40 folded print of the original poster. So 27 by 40, that's the original one size sheet poster. Just to give you a sense of what that is, the poster behind me, the Man of Steel poster I have here is 27 by 40. That's the one you see in the movie theaters. Those are 27 by 40. So yeah, it's a big poster. It's a big poster. Um, yeah, it said reprints of the original 8 lobby cards, 11 by 14-inch cardstock, a 3D lenticular hard case housing of all 5 discs. Um, yeah, Neverending Story is just a classic for me. I loved watching it growing up. It still hits my generation, the previous generation pretty hard. The current generation, and I'm assuming future generations as well. For me personally, when it comes to my collection, I only have the original Blu-ray release. The original Blu-ray release here in the US had no special features. Um, it wasn't even consulted by they didn't even tell the original director Wolfgang Peterson that it was coming out. And then subsequently a few years later, so yeah, I have the 2010 Blu-ray. In 2014, there was a 30th anniversary Blu-ray edition that came out that had some special features. I believe it had an audio commentary with Wolfgang Peterson. That's the one I'm assuming many people have at least here. Um, but and I believe it was also came out in the UK, the same edition, because I believe it's put out by Warner Brothers. Yeah. So uh this would be a monster of an upgrade for me personally. Yet again, I don't know if I have the disposable cash to pluck down to get this gigantic release. If there's a smaller version, perhaps so. Because for me personally, the on disc supplements is what I'm most interested in. The extra stuff is awesome, but I mean, if you have a limited shelf space like I do, where are you going to put this gigantic thing? But let's go by disc breakdown a little bit here. Disc one, US, the original US theatrical cut on 4K UHD, Dolby Vision presentation of the 94-minute theatrical cut on 4K, restored from the original 35 millimeter. A negative by Imprint Films. It's got a new audio commentary by future noir authors Paul M. Simon. We got an audio commentary by Wolfgang Peterson. Um, the second disc is just the Blu-ray version of the movie. Then you got a new audio commentary, which I just said, and the archival audio commentary. Then you got new Finding Fantasia, adapting the Neverending Story, No Boundaries, Imagineering the Neverending Story, Flights of Fantasy, Inside the Scores of the Neverending Story. That's all new stuff, and then I think the rest is all archival special features. Yes, like a making of, reimagining, restoration featurette, Disc 3 is the German extended cut on 4K UHD. So you've got 4K UHD disc 1, 4K UHD disc 3, and then you got Blu-ray disc 2, and then you got a Blu-ray disc 4, which is the German extended cut. And then you've got, and the extended cut is 104 minutes long, for those of you keeping track. So you've got 94-minute theatrical cut, 104-minute German cut, and then the fifth disc is about Blu-ray. That's Life After Neverending Story, a feature-length documentary that's on Blu-ray. And there's over 70 minutes of deleted scenes and extended scenes. And then Once Upon a Time in Treviso featurette. So that is the 5-disc breakdown of that. Massive release. This could be one of the best releases of the year. Yeah, Jeff, I was just saying, how you liking that price? So the price on these are pretty extensive. Let's see if I can change, because usually you can change. If you're on the imprint website, you can change from the Australian dollar to the English dollar or the euro or the British pound or whatever currency. Actually, I think that's only it. But any of those currencies. So let me see. So, when it comes to pricing of this release here, it is $167.90 in US dollar money. Which, I mean, we've seen more for deluxe editions. It is only one movie, but like I said, 5 discs plus all the extra stuff. Let me see what the other ones look like in terms of pricing, because this was something we talked about on the Chasing Labels Facebook page about what the prices would be for these 4K UHDs. Yeah, Convoy, $73.86. A Bridge Too Far, $80.58. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, $80.58. Now that's not including shipping to the United States or shipping to Europe or wherever you're from. So that's going to be significant as well. When it comes to buying here, when it comes to Orbit DVD and Diabolic DVD and all of those places, I'm curious what the prices are going to be there, if they're going to be at least similar prices, perhaps a little cheaper. I don't know. I'm holding out hope for that. Holding out hope for that. All I know is that typically, actually, I've got some here, so I can actually, typically, when it comes to just the regular imprint releases that are sold here on like Orbit DVD or Diabolic DVD, these are typically $30 to $35 a piece, not including shipping. With shipping, I think Diabolic is a $5 flat fee, so you're talking about $35 to $40 for one movie. So you figure double that for the 4K UHD. That seems to be what we're talking about here. Box sets, of course, are our whole other different bag, because some box sets have more movies than others and all that stuff. But yeah, so that is a monster slate from Imprint, just incredible slate from Imprint. So while we are in Australia, let's move over to Umbrella. What are we doing for time here? All right, we're moving a little slow, but that's okay. I like to keep the show around the 2-hour mark. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. There's just too much to go through. We've got too much. Here. We're stuck in the Australian outback. Okay. So Umbrella Entertainment has their December releases. And those imprint releases is their November stuff. I think that's well established. So we've got, I'll just read these down and then go over the ones that I've gotten to see already. Open Your Eyes from 1997, Pulse from 2001, The Speedway Murders from 2023, The Last Stop to You in Yuma County from 2023, Boiling Point from 1993, Sasquatch Sunset from 2024, and then Bird Eater. So we've got seven releases from Umbrella for December. I've got to see 4 out of 7 of these. Open Your Eyes. Let's start right there. Open Your Eyes or Abres los Ojos is directed by Alejandro Amenabar, who directed not only the movie Thesis, he also directed the movie The Others. The Others with Nicole Kidman. I'm pretty sure many people are aware of or are have in their collection. I just rebought it actually myself. I gotta make the upgrade actually on my shelf. But so Open Your Eyes is an interesting kind of psychological film. If you've seen the movie Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise, directed by Cameron Crowe, that movie is a remake of Open Your Eyes. Um, uh, Penelope Cruz plays the same character in this film that she played in that film. Um, interesting movie. Let me see what they've got here for the uh so yeah, Open Your Eyes, the thrilling second feature from Academy Award winner Alejandro Amenabar, is a dizzying tale of science fiction, romance, and suspense starring Eduardo Noriega and incomparable Penelope Cruz in a role she would later reprise in the remake Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise. Open Your Eyes is a gripping psychological thriller that delves into the blurred lines between reality and illusion, keeping viewers on the edge of their seats with its mind-bending twists. Caesar is a handsome, wealthy playboy who has it all until he falls hard for the beautiful Sophia, portrayed by Penelope Cruz, and a jealous ex involves him in a car accident that disfigures his face. As he navigates a world that becomes increasingly surreal, Cesar struggles to distinguish between what is real and what is the product of his imagination. So, yeah, the movie is dealing with the idea of the line between reality and fiction, the line between the dream world and reality, and what and which one is which. And the movie does a pretty good job of disguising that from us as the viewers, from really, making us not understand what is what which is which. I think Vanilla Sky does an even more so a better job of delving into a lot of the more science fiction aspects of it, a lot of the more surreal aspects of it. I think Open Your Eyes may have had certain restrictions when it came to being able to do those things, but it's still very, very good. Very, very good. Um, I would say that I like both of the movies kind of equally, really. It's been many years since I've seen Vanilla Sky. I have it on Blu-ray. It has since been released in 4K. It was in one of those Columbia those big Columbia Collection 4K box sets that Sony's been coming out with, and then I think they released it by itself. This was at a time when Tom Cruise was really challenging himself as an actor. And he's not doing that anymore, but man, like he was really challenging himself with this film, with Magnolia. He was really, pushing his abilities as an actor and showing us how good of an actor he can be. Yeah, it was in hold on, maybe I was wrong. Hold on. Bip. So maybe it wasn't in one of those big sets. It got a Paramount Presents release on Blu-ray, and then it got a 4K release. Okay. So it wasn't in one of those Columbia sets. It should have, because I don't think it's a Columbia film. No, it's a Paramount film. What am I thinking? That makes sense. You know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of Jerry Maguire. That's what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of. Jerry Maguire was in one of those sets and then got a 4K release by itself. That's what I'm thinking of. Coincidentally, I think that's the movie that he did like right around before he did this movie. Yeah, either way, I got those two confused. But Vanilla Sky got a Paramount Presents release on Blu-ray and then a 4K release by itself. That's how we got to that. But the Umbrella release has a new audio commentary with the director. It's got a new special video essay by Andy Marshall Roberts called "Dreams Are Like That." Cool. The obscure object of desire, dreams and doubles in Alejandro Amenabar's Open Your Eyes, an audio essay by Anita Bittel. And then it's got a making of featurette as well. That's interesting. There's a collector's edition that's coming out with this as well that has a 48-page book. The usual thing that Umbrella does. It's got their collector's editions with like a rigid poster artwork case. It's got art cards, reversible poster, stuff like that. kind of like their version of the Arrow limited edition releases. That's kind of what that is. And then they have like their more standard release. This is coming out December 4th. Open Your Eyes. Open Your Eyes also has gotten a Blu-ray release a few years ago here. Let's see, Open Your... Oh, that's not how you spell that. Open Your Eyes, yeah, had a Blu-ray release by Lionsgate in 2019 here in Region A land. Let's see what else we've got. Let's move on to the next film. Let me see if I can find... there you are. Well, I lost my tab there for a second. Oh, we have the movie Pulse. So Pulse is a movie I saw a few years ago. Arrow has put this out already, so many of you perhaps have it in your collection. It is directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who did Cure, which is a great film. Often referred to as one of the scariest films ever made, Pulse is available for the first time in 4K, directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. With its innovative approach and unsettling atmosphere, Pulse explores the dark side of technology and the human psyche, making it a haunting and thought-provoking experience. Prepare for a suspenseful journey that will leave you questioning the boundaries between reality and the unknown. Set in Tokyo, grappling with a mysterious eerie phenomenon, the film follows a group of friends and acquaintances as they encounter an unsettling presence emerging from their computers and other electronic devices. Is their friend trying to contact them from beyond the grave, or is there something much more sinister afoot? Soon there are more strange deaths and disappearances within the group, terrifying rooms sealed in red tape, and the appearance of more ghosts as the city of Tokyo and the world is slowly drained of life. So what we've got here is a ghost story, a mysterious ghost story that is connected to technology in a way. It's an HDR presentation of the film. You've got 3 new special features here: Ghost in the Machine, an interview with Kiyoshi Kurosawa, audio commentary with critic and writer Alexandra Heller-Nicholas, our friend, Apocalypse of Alien Nation, Gazing into the Abyss, and Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse, an audio essay by Anton Bitel. Then you got archival making of featurette. Very interesting. I really remember liking this movie a lot. So I definitely recommend this. If you haven't gotten the Arrow release yet, there's an Arrow release. Yeah, there's an Arrow release both here and in the UK. Now that I'm looking at it, just on Blu-ray though, just on Blu-ray. So this is a 4K world premiere. And I believe that Arrow release looks like it has special features that this one doesn't. So you may want to hold on to that Arrow release if you have it already. It's got Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Broken Circuits, Junichi Hiyashi, Creepy Images, and the Horror of Isolation, which features Adam Wingard. So those 3 that are on the Arrow release are not on this release from Umbrella. Actually, it has the Creepy Images. Oh no, it does have it. I lied. Didn't read far enough. My bad. My bad. So it does have Director of Kiyoshi, it does have Broken Circuits, and it does have Junichiro Hiyashi Creepy Images interview. So you've got both of those interviews on there. And it's got a making of featurette. Hold on, let me go back to here. Yeah, the only thing what it is missing is the Horror of Isolation, and it is missing the Cannes Film Festival footage. That's like from the film screening. Special effects breakdown, it doesn't have either. So that's what it is missing. So it does have those 2 interviews from the director and the cinematographer. Sorry, I'm getting tired now. Let's move on. So that's Pulse. It also comes with the collector's edition with the extra stuff. It's got a 150-page hardback book. That's fascinating. Wow, that's a massive book. Speedway Murders I didn't get to see. Boiling Point I did not get to see but wanted to see. Boiling Point stars and I will say this just to sell it to people: Wesley Snipes, Dennis Hopper, uh, Viggo Mortensen, Seymour Cassell, Jonathan Banks. The narrator of the movie is Tobin Bell from Saw. Um, it's a '90s thriller. It's a '90s thriller. Um, and why that movie's not streaming anywhere is baffling to me. That's a movie that should be streaming. Um, so moving on from Boiling Point, The Last Stop in Yuma County is a movie from this year, directed by Francis Galupi. Yeah, Galupi. I did get to see this. It's on my letterboxd list of like favorite movies of the year. It's in there somewhere. This is a very like small indie film that all takes place in one place. Very well acted, great tension in it. Um, Kind of reminds me a lot of Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's film. A traveling knife salesman sips coffee and works through a day-old crossword puzzle in the hottest diner in Arizona while waiting for the fuel truck to refill the pump at the last gas station for 100 miles. While waiting, he suddenly finds himself in the middle of a violent hostage situation upon the arrival of two bank robbers who are on the run after a recent heist. As the temperature rises and the pressure builds, our knife salesman makes a fateful decision that will change his life forever. So basically, that's what happens. This guy's kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time, and a hostage situation occurs, and he gets caught up in it. Like I said, great tension. All takes place in one setting. Pretty cool. It's a pretty cool movie. It's got 3 audio commentaries. It's by director Francis Galupe and the producer James Clays, director and actors Jim Cummings and Jocelyn Donahue, and then with the director and cinematographer Mac Fiskin. And then there's a documentary sizzle reel here and some other stuff. And there's an interview with the director too. We also getting a collector's edition of that, which comes with a 48-page book, classic poster artwork, 8 art cards. Boiling Point is the same, is also getting a collector's edition. And then we've got Sasquatch Sunset, which is also a movie that technically came out last year, but also came out, but it's kind of counted as coming out this year. This movie is fascinating. Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough star in this movie as Sasquatches. Yes. It is as absurd and as fascinating as you would think so. Basically, you've got these actors portraying Sasquatches, and there's no dialogue in the movie. It's just them like living in the woods, and you just see how their lives play out. You see how, what happens when there's 2 males and 1 female, and there's this struggle for, dominance, and this struggle when it comes to hierarchy in the animal kingdom. And you see, how they live to survive and all this kind of stuff. And then you see what happens when they start discovering more modern day things. They discover like a paved road and what that means and all this kinds of stuff. The movie stars Riley Keough, Jesse Eisenberg, Nathan Zellner, Christoph Zajic, and a supporting cast of indifferent wildlife, an entirely nonverbal script. These shaggy, noble creatures fight for survival as they find themselves on a collision course with the fast-changing world around them. And that's the more fascinating part of the movie, is that the world of humanity is slowly creeping on their world. They discover areas that have gone through deforestation. They discover areas where things have, humans have clearly been in, like dams and things like that. You know what I mean? There's campsites. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying, and so that's definitely a theme of it all. This idea of humanity throughout time has been, impeding itself on the natural world, and what does all of that mean? And how devastating is that towards the natural world? That's something I think we all have to think about. It's got an audio commentary with David and Nathan Zellner. Beneath the Fur, Creating the Sasquatch, the creatures of nature behind the scenes. Um, yeah, and this movie is very graphic in its animalistic nature. They go for it in this film. They straight up go for it. But you got to give the actors credits. Got to give the actors credits. There's nothing held back in this movie. I'll say that. And yeah, it's something else. It's certainly something else to watch in this movie. Um, so David and Nathan Zellner, who are the directing brother pair, they directed Kimiko the Treasure Hunter, which is an interesting indie film from several years ago. I remember that movie. Um, so that's Sasquatch Sunset, and it's getting a collector's edition as well. And then that is it from everything I got to say about Umbrella. Get away from Umbrella. Let's get away from Umbrella. Where are we going to now? You know what? I'll go to this one right now. Yeah, so I'll go to this one now. Indicator. Indicator. Our buddies over at Indicator. We've had them here on Chasing Labels twice. And we've always been a big supporter of Indicator and all the work they've been doing. And they've got a slate here for when is these coming out? November. Yes, this is the November stuff. And we've got 4 releases. 4. We've got Family Life, The Man Who Had Power Over Woman, which is a re-release. This was, I think, a website exclusive that they had put out previously, and then now they're releasing it in a wider berth. I think it's getting a US release essentially. Then you have Left, Right, and Center, and then you got a box set here of 3 films. It's a Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder box set of 3 movies, and the 3 movies are Stir Crazy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and Another You. 3 of the 4 films that Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder starred in together. Let's start with Family Life. Family Life is a Ken Loach film from 1971, and this is a fascinating movie. This is a really interesting film, in my opinion. When a rebellious Janice becomes pregnant, her controlling parents insist she has an abortion in order to avoid a scandal, causing Janice to suffer a schizophrenic episode, which is exacerbated by the medical treatment she receives. That's kind of the movie, but also the movie is so much more than that. What they don't tell you here is that Janice lives in a very conservative family. A very conservative family that is rather oppressive. And the movie is dealing with the typical themes that you see with a lot of Ken Loach's work. His films are very politically themed and leaning, and the movie is very much in line with that. This is dealing with it on a very smaller personal level. You're not dealing with like government oppression or something like that. You're dealing with like oppression within the family and it leading to negative consequences. And this is 1971. This is a teenager going through, adolescence and life and things like that. And this is someone who is not getting a lot of help from the world around her, specifically her parents' world, or the parental world, the familial world, and the negative aspects that lead to that. And this movie is straightforward. There's not a lot of plot going on in terms of like, a story beats and things like that. You're just kind of going from situation to situation where, she's in and out of mental institutions because her parents don't know how to communicate or deal with her. The world doesn't really know how to communicate or deal with her. No one's really listening or paying attention to what may really be going on with her. The various treatments at the time are not like the treatments we have today. The mental health institution is certainly getting critiqued a little bit in this as well. It's a fascinating movie, but it's very blunt. It's not even cinematic at all. It feels very much cinema verite-esque or documentary-esque or British neorealism-esque or British realism-esque, I should say. And that's kind of what Ken Loach has done a lot in his early career as well. The British realism, the kitchen sink realism, as it was called. I believe this was the film he did after Kes. So think of something like similar to Kes, that type of style. Yeah, it's a fascinating movie. And what's really good about the movie is you can translate its themes and its stuff to today. You know what I mean? With in terms of the way in which oppression is still part of our society on a familial level and in our society in general. A lot of what Ken Loach was doing in his movies back then still pertained to now. Um, it's the same thing with like I talked about when I talked about John Sayles films, when I talked about like Matewan and things like that. Similar things are still happening today. Um, so, like I've said this so many times, history is rather cyclical. We're just kind of circling things right now. We really are. We really are as a society. Um, so that is family. So yeah, that is Family Life, directed by Ken Loach. This is coming out September 19th. We've got new interviews here. Um, we've got there's about three major special features. Interview with Jack Claff from 2014, the stage and screen actor remember Sandy Radcliffe, the star of Family Life. The BEHP interview with Tony Garnett from 2007. Archival video interview made as part of the British Entertainment History Project, featuring the producer, director, and longtime Ken Loach collaborator. That's kind of cool. Looking East from 2024, British and Central Eastern European film specialist Michael Brooks video essay on rare overlaps. Our buddy Michael Brook, nice. We've had him here on Chasing Labels a couple of times. Very interesting. So that's something I'm definitely going to be getting sometime in the future. The Man Who Had Power Over Woman, I've talked about that when it came out before. Left, Right, and Center is another political type of film. This is a U.S. only release, so this is a Region A release. I want to say The Family Life is also a U.S. only release. Yes, it's a Region A release, Region A locked. So Left, Right, and Center is directed by Sidney Gilead from 1959. And what you have here is kind of a light romantic political film. What you have here is two candidates who are on different sides of the political spectrum. One's a liberal and one's a conservative, essentially, and they are running against each other in a political race, and they end up falling in love. That's essentially the movie. And I know the movie is trying to kind of play this idea that, even if someone's on different areas of the political spectrum, they can still find common ground to where they can have this personal connection with one another and fall in love. It's rather light in that regard, and so dated in that regard as well, because our world of politics today is vastly different than 1959 in terms of like the way in which people treat political identity, like our political identity on a personal level. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's fascinating just the kind of lightness in which this movie kind of takes that idea and kind of makes it into this kind of romantic comedy, if you will. And it is a romantic comedy. It's what it is. It doesn't delve deep into like political issues or anything like that or whatnot. Yeah, it's kind of a harmful film. It's fine. It's fine. So there's an audio commentary here by Michael Brook, our buddy Michael Brook, who I just talked about. Josephine Boding on Left, Right, and Center, the curator and film historian, discusses the film's place within British cinema of the 1950s and its representation of the medium of television. Election in Britain is a short film from 1960, and that's kind of about it. It's a fine film. It's all right. But moving on here, let's move on to the box set, shall we? Pryor and Wilder, 1990 to 1991, Stir Crazy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Another You. To me, the best film in this set, Stir Crazy. I think that's the one I would say most people like the most. That's just me guessing. That's me guessing. See No Evil, Hear No Evil is fun. I think Another You is not particularly great. Another You was done it came out in 1991, and it is, I think, like the last movie that they were in together, and it was pretty much kind of the swan song of both of their careers when it came to movies. I think it was kind of it was a box office failure. That movie, Another You, was actually originally directed by Peter Bogdanovich, and it was set in New York. And they shot pretty much the entire movie, and there was only a couple of days left, I think, on the production. And then Peter Bogdanovich got fired, and they ended up remaking the whole movie. Um, they ended up remaking the whole movie set in Los Angeles and doing a whole new different movie. So there is a Peter Bogdanovich unedited movie out there with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. Apparently, the Gene Wilder and Richard and Peter Bogdanovich didn't get along at all while making the movie, and that led to that movie kind of falling apart, or at least that version of it. And what we get here is Another You. But Stir Crazy is a lot of fun. It's directed by Sidney Poitier, came out in 1980. Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder were, two of American cinema's best loved comic actors. Really a fantastic dynamic duo on screen. In Stir Crazy, they're in prison together, and it's a lot of shenanigans ensue. In See No Evil, Hear No Evil, they team up to foil a murderous gang of thieves, but Richard Pryor is blind and Gene Wilder is deaf. So together they gotta team up, so one can be one's eyes, the other one can be one's ears, basically. Fun. It's fun. It's a fun movie. And then Another You, compulsive liar Gene Wilder is mistaken for the heir to a fortune to the delight of con man Eddie, who was portrayed by Richard Pryor. So Gene Wilder is in an insane asylum, that's a psychiatric hospital. That's more apropos. And he gets mistaken for an heir to a gigantic fortune. So he gets kind of sprung out of there. And then Gene Wilder is his assistant who's going along with him for the ride just to ride his coattails for money. It's fun. It's awesome to see them on screen together. That's the real, heart of that movie, I think, in hindsight. In hindsight, it's just nice to see those comedic legends on screen together for a final time. The movie itself is not great. You know what I mean? It's just not. For me, it's not, at least. But this release here has an audio commentary for See No Evil, Hear No Evil. It has an audio commentary on Another You. It doesn't have an audio commentary for Stir Crazy. That's unfortunate. It's got new interviews here from 2024. Actually, yeah, it's got a lot. It's got a making of See No Evil, Hear No Evil. It's got an exclusive 100-page book. That's pretty cool. But yeah, what's also kind of cool is that I'm pretty sure these movies haven't really been getting a lot of good releases, at least not here. Stir Crazy has a single release from 2012. Then it's part of a triple feature of See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Stir Crazy, and The Toy from 2013, I think. And this was put out by Image Entertainment. And Another You has never had a Blu-ray release here at all in Region A land. And then See No Evil, Hear No Evil has a release from 2012 as well from Image Entertainment, which is out of print. So if anything, it's nice to have these movies in print somewhere and getting a rather deluxe treatment, a very deluxe treatment of this. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I feel you. Blazing Saddles is fantastic. Guy Calgary, did you see that they're putting out Blazing Saddles in 4K now? With not great cover art. Not great. The cover art for that is not great. And then the steelbook is just a saddle on fire. Because of Blazing Saddles. Not really stretching the imagination when it comes to that. But yeah, Blazing Saddles is a pure classic. I own that movie in a Mel Brooks Blu-ray collection. But that collection has slowly been getting 4K upgrades over the last several years. Like Spaceballs has that 4K upgrade from Kino. Blazing Saddles is now getting a 4K upgrade. I think did Young Frankenstein get a 4K upgrade yet? No, it just got a Blu-ray upgrade, but I feel like this is the 50th anniversary of Young Frankenstein this year. Yeah, there's got to be a 4K announcement soon, right? I would assume so. Yeah, because Young Frankenstein came out in 1974. It's the 50th anniversary. What are we doing? Oh, it's 20th Century Fox. It's Disney now, so who knows what's going to happen with that. But you never know. You never know. I'm holding out hope for that. But yeah, I got to start upgrading my Mel Brooks stuff. Just because those movies are kind of comfort movies for me. Robin Hood Men in Tights, Spaceballs. I watched incessantly as a child. Spaceballs is actually one of the first DVDs I ever owned. I got that for Christmas one year when I got my first DVD player as a kid. This must have been Christmas 2001, maybe 2002, something like that. Right around that time. And yeah, I just, I just have a lot of fond memories of watching Mel Brooks films. Mel Brooks actually just got casted in something. He's still working to this day. Oh man, he's such a legend. Such a legend. Yeah, so let me see. What I got off track here. Oh yeah, the Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder box set from Indicator. It would have been nice had they included the fourth film that they had been in together. So we could have, had just a complete box set of their stuff. Let's see, Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor. Let me see what that fourth film actually is. Yeah, Silver Streak. Yes, Silver Streak. From 1976. Coincidentally, I think the first film that they were in together. I don't think Silver Streak. Let me see. Silver Streak has. Oh, it did have a Blu-ray release. It had a Blu-ray release in 2013 by Star/Anchor Bay, and it is out of print. Okay. All right. That's unfortunate. So that is everything from Indicator. Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder box set, Family Life, The Man Who Had Power Over Women, and Left, Right, and Center. To me, Family Life is the one I kind of want the most out of all of those, because I do like Ken Loach and his work. So let's get rid of that, and then let's go to Severin. Severin was where I wanted to go to before. So Severin, we talked about them last time. We talked about how they had hinted that they were doing All the Haunts BRs folk horror box set number 2, and indeed it was. It was volume 2 of All the Haunts BRs Compendium of Folk Horror volume 2 box set. I did a YouTube short on when it was announced, but we've got obviously more details about it now since it's well in the pre-order phase. It is 13 disc Blu-ray set. I believe it's 20. Hold on. Yeah, 24 films on 13 discs. It's let's just roll with it. So disc 1, To Fire You Come at Last, and Psychomania, and then disc 2, we've got The Enchanted, and then we got Who Fears the Devil, and then we've got disc 3 with The White Reindeer and Edge of the Knife. Disc 4, we've got Born of Fire, and that's just on there by itself. Disc 5 is EO Island, and then Scales. Disc 6, we've got Bakaneko, A Vengeful Spirit, and then we have Nang Nak. And then disc 7, we've got Sundel Bolong, and then we have Susanna, Queen of Black Magic. Disc 8, we've got Beauty and the Beast, which is a Czechoslovakian version from 1978. Then we have The Ninth Heart. Then disc 9, we have Demon. And then November, which I've actually seen. And then disc 10, we have Letan, which I've also seen. That's directed by Jean-Pierre Macchi. That's a French film from 1982. And then also on that disc, we have Blood Tea and Red String. Ooh, I like that little rhyming scheme they got going on there. Disc 11, we have Nazareno, Cruz, and the Wolf. And then we have a movie called Akalar. And then we've got disc 12 is From the Old Earth and Wales. And then we've got disc 13, The City of the Dead, and then The Rights of May. Yep, that's disc 13. That is it. So no CD soundtrack when it comes to this set here, which I believe the first set did have. I was talking with Steven the other day about that. How this set doesn't seem to have the typical CD soundtrack that they have in there, which is fine. It's fine. We've got 24 movies, and that's enough. I'm sure that makes up for it. All the discs have special features. Many of the discs have multiple special features. We're talking some have more than others, but there's a lot of special features. This is a comprehensive set. There are various versions of this you can buy, or packages, I should say, packages. You can buy this straight up by itself. You can buy just the box set. You can buy the box set, and you can buy this book called All the Haunts Be Ours, a folk horror storybook. That's an extra $35. The box set itself is $180 on Severin right now. If you want to wait for a sale, perhaps you can get it for cheaper. Then there's a big box set. There's a big package, I should say, called All the Haunts Be Yours bundle, which has a bunch of swag with it. It's got the box set. It's got a diorama. It's got all kinds of stuff. It's got an exclusive tote bag. It's got tea towels. It's got a bunch of things in here. That's limited to $750 in total. And then you can also get Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched Folk Horror Oracle Deck Booster Pack. So I think it's a tarot deck of All the Haunts Be Ours themed, which is kind of cool. At least I think it is. Seems like it is. But that's not all that Severin has announced recently. Il Demonio is getting a Blu-ray release, as well as a movie called Allison's Birthday. Now, if I do recall, Il Demonio is part of All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 1. So if you have Volume 1 of All the Haunts Be Ours, you have that movie already. And then we have Allison's Birthday. That's not how you spell that. Okay. Hold on. I think it's the same deal with Allison's Birthday. Yeah, same deal with Allison's Birthday. It's part of the first All the Haunts Be Ours set. So if you have that set, you have this already. So they released those two individually from that set. I guess for those of you who don't have it and just want those movies by themselves, why not? They're releasing another card deck as well called Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched Folk Horror Oracle deck. Yeah, there's an Oracle deck and there's a booster pack. So the Oracle deck is the standard deck, and then there's a booster pack. I know very little about cards and things, clearly. But Severin also had a few other things that they announced. They were at a film festival, not this weekend, last weekend, something like that. I don't know. The days keep running together, and all that stuff. But they announced a couple of things that they haven't officially announced yet. Well, they announced it there, but they haven't put out like press releases or anything. At least from not from what I've seen. Let me see if I can find it here. I wrote them down. Oh yes. So Super Vixens is getting a release. Hold on. Let me see if I can find some information on this. Super Vixens. Yeah, so Super Vixens is a Russ Meyer film. Okay? Super Vixens is a Russ Meyer film, and this led many people to believe that um, they have acquired perhaps rights to other Russ Meyer films. Um, I know just off the top of my head, Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. If they put out a release of that, I would love that to happen. It had a Blu-ray release back in 2015 from RM Films International. I have no idea who that is, to be frank with you guys. Um, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls has both an Arrow release in the UK and a Criterion release here. I think I have Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, actually, and if I don't, I need to get it. What a wild, wild movie. Russ Meyer is like a cult exploitative type of director. Um, just a wild director. Just a wild director. Um, so like getting his stuff more on Blu-ray would be incredible. Um, so they're doing that. Let me see what else I wrote down here. Delicatessen, the Jean-Pierre Jeunet film, which I know it's been put out on Blu-ray. I think there's a 4K of it coming out, which I've talked about on here before. So if Severn's putting out their own version of that, I would love that. Yeah, Delicatessen, I think had a 4K come out last year from Studio Canal. Yeah, Studio Canal, because Lionsgate released the Blu-ray here many years ago. So that's interesting. Hey, look who's here. Checking the comments. Johnny, nice to see you. I would love for Severn, or anyone for that matter, to get into the Russ Meyer business and release more of his obscure gems. Yes. I was just trying to explain who Russ Meyer kind of is, probably not properly, because I don't know a lot of his work, to be straight with everyone. I know that I know Russ Meyer basically through John Waters. So if you know John Waters, you know the type of movies Russ Meyer makes. And so I was telling Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is kind of the one I think a lot of people know of the most because it's got a Criterion release, it's got an Arrow release, all of that stuff. But Super Vixens is getting seems like getting a Blu-ray release from Severin sometime soon. I was just talking about Delicatessen, the Jean-Pierre Jeunet films getting a Severin release in the future. That's kind of awesome because that's been stuck kind of just on an old Lionsgate Blu-ray here for a while. I know we got the 4K from Studio Canal last year. A 4K from Severin here would be kind of cool. But I don't know when it comes to rights and things like that. I thought Lionsgate pretty much had the rights to that here. Interesting. But what else did Johnny say? Yeah, a true classic and perhaps Roger Ebert's greatest contribution to cinematic history. Yes, a lot of people don't know that. The Roger Ebert, the critic that everybody knows of, or at least heard of, wrote the screenplay for Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And if you watch Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, man, what a wild movie. What an incredible, unhinged movie. And the fact that it was written by Roger Ebert makes it all the more interesting. But yeah, so they're putting out Delicatessen. Like I said, what else did I write down here? Oh, that movie Thesis, the Amenabar film, which I think just got a release from. I know it just got a release. I don't know why it's not showing up on Blu-ray.com. Let me see if I can go to it directly. I guess not. Maybe it is because I'm spelling it wrong. That's why. Because in Australia, it's Thesis. It's either Thesis or Thesis. So in October, it looks like Umbrella is putting it out on 4K. So that would lead me to believe that I guess Severin will be putting theirs out sometime after that, perhaps. This is the movie, like I said, by Alejandro Amenabar. It's an interesting movie. Oh, excuse me. Kind of in the same vein as like 8mm, as like Joel Schumacher's film 8mm. It's interesting. So, researching violence in media, Madrid film student Angela discovers a video in which a screaming woman is brutalized, then shot. A snuff film, hence the connection I have with 8 millimeter. Realizing the victim is a former student at the university, Angela investigates with the help of a classmate and exploitation film aficionado. So she is like a student who kind of goes down this rabbit hole of these kind of things that have been happening at her university. Um, that's thesis or thesis. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, Johnny says Ebert and Russ also collaborated on a semi-sequel, Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, which I always confuse with Super Vixens, but it's harder to find. That is fascinating. Combining those two titles into one, or those two films into one. Um, was that movie ever completed? And it's just not available to see anywhere. Is that seems like it seems like that would be something that's going on. Like Russ Meyer films back in the day. I don't think a lot of people realize this, but movies like Russ Meyer films were like underground films. Like you can only like see these movies at like special underground screenings and stuff like that, or because they were so risque and whatnot. Um, you know what I mean? Like that like it was illegal to see these types of movies. That's not something we can think about today. Like it's illegal to watch a movie. Like we can't even wrap our head around that. Like the people would like John Waters has stories of going into of watching screenings of movies, like underground screenings like this, and like the police would break in to break it up. You know what I mean? Like and arrest people. It's wild. It's wild. I Johnny says I believe so. Just hasn't gotten a good release, and it doesn't have the acclaim of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Gotcha, gotcha. Uh, it won't be getting the Criterion treatment. Gotcha, gotcha on that. But yeah, there was a couple of other things from Severin that I didn't get to write down, but I'm assuming they will announce them relatively soon. So let's see. We just did Severin. We did Indicator. Let me see. We are heading into what do I have here? Let me get rid of that. I'm just organizing my tabs here so I can keep things in relative order. Eureka Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome, I think, are what we have left to go over here. If I'm looking at my notes, that seems like where we should go. Let's go Eureka Arrow Indicator, Eureka Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, partner labels in that order. That's how we will go the rest of the show. So we've got Eureka has their November batch of Blu-ray releases. They are Black Tuesday, Juggernaut, The Sword, and Super Spies and Secret Lies. Oh, I like when we get some rhyming schemes going on here. I like it. That is a box set of films from 1966 to 1969. We'll start there, actually. So Super Spies and Secret Lies is three movies. The Golden Buddha, Angel with Iron Fists, and The Singing Thief. And the Golden Buddha is a Shaw Brothers take on the Shaw Brothers take on James Bond. Pursued by the murderous skeleton gang, 3 people travel from Bangkok, Thailand, to the ruins of ancient Siamese capital. Oh boy, Ayutthaya, in search of lost treasure using 3 small Buddha statues. I assume. Let's see. Yep, 3 small Buddha statues. And then next we've got Angel with Iron Fists. Angel with Iron Fists. A father whose daughter is killed by the Devil Girls gang goes on search of justice. Sounds like a revenge thriller to me. And then we've got The Singing Thief. Singing Thief is a jewel thief decides to turn over a new leaf. He starts anew as a professional singer. Interesting. I have a feeling that something's going to draw him back into his old life. That just seems to be the way things go. And let me go back and check out some special features here. New audio commentaries by Action Cinema expert Mike Leader and Arn Venema. International Super Spies, a new interview with James Bond expert Luella Chapman on global Bond mania in the 1960s. A new interview with Hong Kong cinema scholar Wayne Wong, editor of Martial Arts Studies. Reversible sleeve featuring individual sleeve work for each film. And then we got a collector's booklet in here as well. The Sword, best known as a key contributor to the Hong Kong New Wave, as we're gonna come back to this later, as the director of My Heart is That Eternal Rose, and the editor of Wong Kar-wai's Days of Being Wild and Ashes of Time. Patrick Tam began his filmmaking career with The Sword, a love letter to the wuxia genre, starring Adam Chang. Um, okay, so we're gonna come back to this director later because That Eternal Rose, My Heart is That Eternal Rose, is getting released by Connie, the partner label from Vinegar Syndrome, and it's one of the films I got to watch, and I was thinking that it felt like a Wong Kar-wai esque film, so that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense now. It's all coming together, people. It's all coming together. Believing that he's in possession of a cursed blade, the legendary swordsman Hua Qian Shu has retreated from the martial arts world to live in peaceful seclusion. However, his retirement has done nothing to dampen his reputation. A young warrior, Li Makjan, wishes to challenge the master in order to test his own sword fighting skill, but as Li searches for the reclusive Hua Qian Shu, so that he may face him in combat, he finds himself entangled with old lovers and new rivals. That's what happens. Soon it becomes apparent that the old master's sword really might be cursed and will perhaps bring nothing but tragedy to those who seek to wield it. This sounds really, really good, and I really, really want to see this movie. Yeah. Yeah, it says right here, after a period of dormancy, wuxia films resurged in the 1980s as the likes of Duel to the Death, Bastard Swordsman, and Zui Hark's Zoo Warriors from Magic Mountain rejected the realist approach adopted by Kung Fu cinema in the previous decade. Eureka Classics is proud to present Patrick Tam's The Sword, one of the earliest and best pictures to emerge from the wuxia revival, for the first time on Blu-ray in the UK from a brand new 2K restoration. Yeah, it's got two new audio commentaries in here. I just really want to see this movie because I really am fascinated by this director now. And yeah, so that's kind of an interesting buy. I'm wondering if it's gotten a release from any place else yet. Hold on, getting The Swordsman. I guess not. It's called The Sword, not The Swordsman. That would explain why nothing came up. Oh, yeah. No, I think that's a US release as well. Yeah, it's one of so it's a Eureka US release as well as a UK release. I forgot that Eureka does US releases now. Huh. There you go. There you go. So let me move on from there. So we got The Sword. Juggernaut is a film I've already talked about. Yeah, the movie has Richard Harris in it. It's got Anthony Hopkins, Omar Sharif, Ian Holm is in the film. Yeah, I think a cruise liner gets taken over, it gets like hijacked. A cruise liner gets hijacked, and then a team has to like figure out a way to, rescue the people aboard, essentially. Yeah, because they're threatening to like blow up some stuff and whatnot. I want to say, hold on. The cruise liner SS Britannic is traveling through the North Atlantic with over 1,000 passengers on board. As the vessel drifts through the vast ocean, its owner, Nicholas Porter, receives a call from a man who identifies himself only as Juggernaut. The ominous voice on the telephone informs Porter that there are explosives planted aboard the Britannic and that he will sink the ship at dawn unless a hefty ransom is paid. A race against time then begins as Captain Alex Brunel, Royal Navy officer Anthony Fallon, and police superintendent John McLeod, who are portrayed by Sharif, Richard Harris, and Anthony Hopkins, work together across the land and sea in a desperate attempt to avert disaster and secure the safety of the ship's passengers. I want to say this is something that came out. Hold on, let me look. I'm looking it up right now. So Juggernaut, yeah, it was re-released by Kino back in 2023. That's why I remember talking about it. That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, so yeah, that's Juggernaut. Black Tuesday. This is a film starring Edward G. Robinson. Hold on, this is actually this is one of those that's been released a few times as well. Black Tuesday is it's in the Dark Side of Cinema box set from Kino, Volume 17. That just came out in February. There's a edition of Black Tuesday in there. Hold on, let me see if there's any special features. There we go. It's good. There's an audio commentary by film historian and screenwriter Gary Duraney. And what do we have on this release? Brand new audio commentary by film expert Sergio Angelini, host of the Tipping My Fedora podcast. Yeah, there's from Argentina to Hollywood, a brand new interview with film historian Sheldon Hall on director Hugo Fragonese. No Escape, a brand new video essay by Imogen Sarah Smith, author of In the Lonely Places, film noir Beyond the City. This edition of Black Tuesday is definitely better than the Kino one in terms of just special features alone. And the movie is, like I said, stars Edward G. Robinson. Vincent Kennelly Robinson is a violent mobster serving time on death row, but he has no intention of going to the electric chair following a plan put together by his Mal Hattie. Kennelly orchestrates a jailbreak on the night before his execution and takes several hostages in the process. Kennelly is joined by fellow death row inmate Peter Manning, portrayed by Peter Graves, and hopes to discover the location of a stash of stolen loot. Manning hid away before his conviction, but is Manning willing to pay the price for freedom and look the other way as the psychopathic Kennelly revels in murder and mayhem? Oh, interesting. Sounds more like a gangster film than it does a film noir. I think it says here that it's more influenced by the 1930s gangster films. That makes a lot of sense since has Edward G. Robinson, who was in Little Caesar, which is a 1930s gangster film. So that is, I think, that's the UK. That's only coming out in the UK. That is it from Eureka. So we've got Black Tuesday, Juggernaut, The Sword, Super Spies, and Secret Lies. These are all coming out in November. Let's go over to Arrow now. We are in Arrowland. This is going to be a long episode. We're approaching 2.5 hours at this point, and we haven't hit Vinegar Syndrome yet. So Arrow Video announces November releases. We've got A Simple Plan, The Invasion, At Close Range, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and Tommy. Tommy, I think maybe more accurate. So, first up, A Simple Plan is a Sam Raimi film from 1998. The film stars Bill Paxton, Bridget Fonda, Billy Bob Thornton. It's a good little psychological thriller. It's in the vein of Danny Boyle's Shallow Grave. That's its closest comparison that I thought of the entire time while I was watching the movie. And when I read this premise, I think you'll understand why if you've seen Shallow Grave. If you haven't seen Danny Boyle's Shallow Grave, watch that movie. The Criterion put out a Blu-ray of it. It's really good. I think it's his first film. Super good movie. Let's see. Hank Mitchell, Bill Paxton, and his wife Sarah, portrayed by Bridget Fonda, have big dreams and a baby on the way, but are stuck in the small Minnesota town where Hank grew up alongside his sweet but naive brother Jacob, portrayed by Billy Bob Thornton. One day while walking in the woods, Hank, Jacob, and Jacob's friend Lou, who is portrayed by Brent Briscoe, discover a small plane buried in the snow with a dead pilot inside and a duffel bag containing over $4 million. I think it's like $4.4 million in cash. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to grasp the American dream in one fell swoop if they can just keep it a secret But Hank soon learns that keeping that secret will come at a terrible cost. So, as you can tell, as the rap song says, more money, more problems. you know, uh, it's nice to have $4.4 million in cash that just seemed to literally fall out of the sky, but it's never that easy, is it? It's never that cut and dry. There's always a catch, and in this case, the catch is like trying to keep it a secret, the guilt of doing that, the planning and mischievous ways, the greed that plays into it. You know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. And then like what happens if someone else in this group is getting cold feet about the situation? What do you do then? All that kind of stuff. Where did this money come from? You know what I mean? Is it morally okay to keep this money? You know what I'm saying? Should we put it back? Should we put some of it back and keep some of it? Should we use it? Should we leave town? All of these questions and all of these things are all in this movie. But the movie is incredibly well written. It's such a tight screenplay, such a focused film, a really good film directed by Sam Raimi. Um, it's a movie I had never seen before. I watched it for the first time. It is getting a 4K UHD release as well as a regular Blu-ray release. I'm buying it. Like I need it for my Sam Raimi section. I need it just in general because it's that good of a movie. And in general, I just miss Bill Paxton on my screen. Um, what a good actor he was. What a good actor he was. He's definitely sorely missed. There's a brand new audio commentary by critics Glenn Kenny and Farron Smith Name. Brand new commentary by production designer Patricia von Brandenstein with filmmaker Justin Beam. Hey, our good buddy Justin Beam from Reverend Entertainment. That's awesome. That's awesome. Of Mice and Men, a newly filmed interview with cinematographer Alar Kivilo. Standing Her Ground, a newly filmed interview with actor Becky Ann Baker. Dead of Winter, a newly filmed interview with actor Chelsea Ross. On-set interviews with Paxton Thornton, Fonda Raimi, and producer Jim Jacks. Wow, Jim Jacks was a producer on this. Cool. What a nice little thriller of a movie. This would pair very nicely, like I said, with Danny Boyle's Shallow Grave. Money driving the actions of people. Really good stuff here. Really good stuff. Next we have The Invasion. I remember when this movie came out in 2007. I remember seeing trailers for this movie, TV spots for this movie. This movie stars, who's in this movie? Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman. And it is essentially a remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or it's a take on Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And it's not great. It's not terrible. It's kind of a product of it being a very 2000s thriller film. Some of the direction and the editing of the movie really bothered me. I wasn't a big fan of it. A lot of over editing for some odd reason. That just like really irked me a little bit. But here's the general premise. A space shuttle crashes to Earth carrying an alien organism. Soon people are changing, becoming detached and emotionless. People like CDC director Tucker Kaufman, portrayed by Jeremy Northam, is investigating the crash. Meanwhile, his ex-wife, psychiatrist Carol Bennell, Nicole Kidman, sees the same behavior in a friend of their son, and a patient claims that her husband is no longer her husband. As people all across Washington, D.C. become infected and the insidious epidemic spreads, Carol must fight to protect herself and her son, who might just hold the key to stopping the escalating invasion. What I find so fascinating about this movie is viewing it in the lens of a post-COVID pandemic world. I think gives it extra context and a different type of lens, because you're seeing the way people kind of react to this kind of world-changing health issue, essentially. And we also kind of lived that in real time, and we saw how people reacted. Obviously, it's not to this extent of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you know what I'm saying? But in the general idea of like, something changing on a large scale, health-wise, with the world, a pandemic, if you will. So it's interesting to see how the people react and act this way, how the panic sets in and how the nervousness and how there's deniers, there's people who believe it, don't believe it, all this kind of stuff, and the way in which the government reacts to all that kind of stuff and whatnot. This is an interesting movie. Like I said, um, kind of dated in that 2000s thriller sense. Also, this is most definitely part of the Warner Brothers uh, deal that Arrow has with them when it comes to distribution. I mentioned it earlier. For those of you who weren't here earlier, for those of you who weren't around earlier, I recently got The Man from Uncle, the 4K UHD release that Arrow has put out. This was part of their WB Arrow distribution deal, and the reason why I think The Invasion is part of that is because the original Blu-ray uh, that came out, the only one that's been around, was put out by Warner Brothers, and it was a Warner Brothers production movie back in the day. Um, so that's why. It's interesting how Warner Brothers is letting Arrow into their catalog, but what they're letting them have access to. So far, we've got, a movie from 2015. We got Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans movies from the 2010s as well that came out like right before this. And now we've got a movie from 2007. So we've got like a more recent Warner Brothers catalog that WB's been getting themselves into, or letting Arrow get itself into. That's kind of fascinating. Let's see what else we got here for comments. So Johnny, so thrilled for A Simple Plan. I actually don't think it ever got a domestic Blu-ray release. One of Raimi's very best. I can tell you right now if it's gotten a Blu-ray release here. A Simple Plan. No, this is the only Blu-ray release that's coming out ever in the US, or yeah. Yeah, and it's only a US release. It's not a UK release. No. No, yeah, USA and Canada. So it's not a UK release. It makes me believe who in the UK owns the rights to this movie and haven't put it out on Blu-ray yet. You would think with all of the fanfare that someone like Sam Raimi has got over the years, directing 3 Spider-Man films. Heck, he just directed an MCU movie. You'd think like all these companies would capitalize on the name and put out whatever they have of him. Yeah, you would think so. But you're right, Johnny. It hasn't come out here ever on Blu-ray. So this is kind of a first. That's awesome. But let's see what else Arrow is putting out. Like I said, The Invasion. It's getting a 4K UHD release. We got brand new audio commentary from film critics Andreas Subasati and Alexandra West, co-hosts of the Faculty of Horror podcast, Body Snatchers and Beyond, a new visual essay by film scholar Alexandra Helen Nicholas. She's all over these releases. She's, a guest here on Chasing Labels once upon a time. I'm always going to say that. That Bug That's Going Around, a new visual essay exploring the invasion as pandemic prophecy, that film scholar Josh Nelson. Very cool. Then there's a bunch of featurettes from the 2007 disc, I assume, because they all say featurette from 2007. So that would lead me to believe that that's where that's from. So this is a US, Canada, and UK release. It's coming out on Blu-ray as well if you're not in the 4K game. At Close Range. Here we go. At Close Range. Now, this is a film that has gotten released before. At Close Range. So At Close Range has gotten a release from a few different places. So At Close Range has gotten a release here in the US from Twilight Time back in 2015. It's gotten an MVD release back in 2022. And it's now getting a Blu-ray release from the UK in November of 2024, but it's also gotten an imprint release in 2020. It was imprint release number 25. So we've got plenty of At Close Range to go around. Now, I was wanting to watch this movie for years. This movie stars Christopher Walken and Sean Penn, and I had heard about this movie for many years. So I finally got to watch it, and yeah, it's good. Um, it's inspired by real life events. Brad Whitewood Jr., Sean Penn, reconnects with his estranged father, Brad Sr., portrayed by Christopher Walken, a notorious charismatic criminal fascinated by his father's lifestyle. Brad Jr. forms a gang with his brother Tommy, portrayed by Chris Penn, the real life brother of Sean Penn, and begins stealing tractors. Their criminal activity quickly draw them deeper into Brad Sr.'s world, but their illicit pursuits take a grim turn when the gang cross the point of no return in murder. Now in too deep, Brad Jr. must now confront the chilling truth about his father's nefarious actions. There is an interesting supporting cast in here. You'll notice some recognizable faces. Kiefer Sutherland, Crispin Glover, and Mary Stuart Masterson. Um, and a haunting soundtrack by frequent Madonna collaborator Patrick Leonard, which includes the original song "Live to Tell," performed by Madonna. At Close Range is an atmospheric thriller ripe for discovery, and indeed it is. Indeed it is. You've got this chaotic, toxic father-son dynamic. You've got familial drama. You've got this kind of real life connection as well. Based on a true story. I believe it was set in the like the Philadelphia area in the 1970s. Directed by James Foley. James Foley, who I believe directed James Foley directed not only At Close Range, but he directed. Hold on. Yeah, he directed. Oh, let me. I think he directed Glengarry Glen Ross. Yes, he did Glengarry Glen Ross. He also directed an episode of Twin Peaks, and he did a Madonna, like the Madonna music video collection, as well as a bunch of music videos from Madonna. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, he also directed the movie Fear. He directed an episode of the Hannibal TV series, which is a great TV series. Yeah, James Foley. But At Close Range is a really good thriller starring some people who are going to be recognizable. Let me see what else we got here for comments. I remember The Invasion being rather poorly reviewed when it came out, so much so that I stayed away, but curious if there's been a real cultural reassessment or if it was just a WB film up for grabs. I think a little of both. I think it works for a little of both, actually. Like I said, perhaps it was, part of that deal, and they were just like, "Oh, there's the Invasion." The Invasion hasn't had a Blu-ray release since 2008. I think it came out in 2007, so I think 2008 was when the Blu-ray might have come out. So it was ripe for some type of remastering. And then, of course, now we're living in the post-COVID world, so there is a little bit of reassessment there. Nicole Kidman, of course, has gone on and done many other projects. Daniel Craig, of course, this was right after Casino Royale had come out, and he was in several James Bond films after that and other films as well. So it's kind of nice from that perspective to see an earlier James Bond. Jeffrey Wright's also in the movie as well. Young Jeffrey Wright, who was also in Casino Royale as well. Interesting. Fascinating. These connections. Another comment here from Johnny. I do really like At Close Range, but I've got both the Twilight Time and Imprint. Don't know if I need another, even with the 4K upgrade. Let me see. So At Close Range is not getting a 4K upgrade. So it's just a DVD. It's just a Blu-ray. So you're probably covered when it comes to picture quality. I don't think it's going to be. It just says high definition transfer. It doesn't say that it's new. It doesn't say anything like that. The only thing that I don't see, it just says there's a brand new audio commentary with film critic Adrian Martin. Adrian Martin's been here on Chasing Labels a couple of times as well. It's got the archival audio commentary with director James Foley and film historian Nick Redman. I know that was definitely on the Twilight Time release, because Nick Redman ran Twilight Time. Sins of the Father, Masculinity, Murder, and Morality in At Close Range, a brand new appreciation by author and academic Dr. Laura Main. Keeping the Score, a brand new examination of the film's score by film historian and composer Neil Brand. Um, let's see, archival interview with director James Foley, isolated score track, double-sided fold-out posters, 6 postcards, booklet featuring new writing. Hold on, let me see. Just quick look-see here. So the original Twilight Time release only had that commentary, which makes its way over here. Let me check the other. Let me check the other ones really quick. So we've got the MVD release. The MVD release only has audio commentary with James Foley. I'm assuming it's the same one that I just talked about. Maybe not. Then we'll go to Australia. Let me pull up the Okay, here's the press release for At Close Range. Audio commentary with director James Foley and Nick Redman. Interview with director James Foley. Crime in Pennsylvania, The Real Johnston Gang. Interview with former reporter and author of Jailing the Johnston Gang, Bruce Mowdy. Interview with composer Patrick Leonard. Badlands, short location. So, yeah, unfortunately, it looks like the special features from the imprint edition and the Arrow edition are slightly different. You still get the audio commentary, but some of the features are different. That's what at least that's what it looks like to me. Just doing a side by side comparison. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. But anywho, let's go on. That's At Close Range. Now we have Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. This is a 4K UHD upgrade from the Blu-ray that they've already put out. So if you have that Blu-ray, you kind of know what the situation is here. You've got all the same special features. And it's a brand new 4K restoration done by Arrow Films themselves. Cassandra Peterson is Elvira. This, I believe, is the first Elvira film. Yeah. Having just quit her job as a Los Angeles TV horror hostess, Elvira receives the unexpected news that she's set to inherit part of her great aunt Morgana's estate, arriving in the small town of Falwell, Massachusetts, to claim her inheritance. Elvira receives a less than enthusiastic reception from the conservative locals, amongst them her sinister Uncle Vincent, who, unbeknownst to Elvira, is in fact an evil warlock secretly scheming to steal the old family spellbook for his own nefarious ends. This can't be Elvira classic. It's a shame this isn't coming out for October, because this seems like something that should be watched during the Halloween season. But if you have the Blu-ray already, you're good to go. So that's a lot of fun stuff. Tommy, I don't know anything about. I didn't get to watch it, and I didn't get to see what it's all about as well. So I'll just skip that for now in the interest of time. Sorry about that. Shawscope Volume 3, we've kind of already gone over. We went over when it was announced. But Shawscope Volume 3 is part of the November slate. It's got movies from between... it's got movies from... I'll just go through the... Between 1967 and 1983, excuse me. It's 14 films in this box set. We've got The One-Armed Swordsman, Return of the One-Armed Swordsman, The New One-Armed Swordsman, Lady Hermit, Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, The 14 Amazons, The Magic Blade, The Sentimental Swordsman, Clans of Intrigue, Jade Tiger, The Avenging Eagle, Killer Constable, Buddha's Palm, Bastard Swordsman. That is the 14 films. It's got a blue... They're all on... Let me see, how many discs are in this set? 9 Blu-ray discs and 1 CD. I believe... Let's see if they did a breakdown. Oh, no, they didn't. Yeah. It's got back with all new exclusive restorations and hours of insightful bonus material. If you thought the previous 2 Shawscope sets showed the Shaw brothers at its strongest, you ain't seen nothing yet. UK and Canada street date, November 26th. UK street date, November 27th. I've got the first two sets. So I've got, hold on, let me get rid of that. I've got the first two sets. Yeah, Johnny, I just went over kind of all of that. Yeah, it does. It's not a 4K upgraded. You just get kind of new special features, I assume. Um, and then we've got Johnny says I have a lot of dumb nostalgia for that goofy little Elvira film, enough to upgrade to 4K. Maybe once it's on sale. Um, yeah, do what I do. Wait for certain sales. That's kind of me. That's my kind of philosophy on these things. There's so much to collect. You might as well save when you can, especially if you know if there are sales around the corner. But like I said, Shawscope Volume 3 is also part of November sale. I've got Shawscope Volume 2 right here next to me. Um, and then I have Shawscope Volume 1 as well, right here next to me. And of course, they got to do something about when, if you tip these in the wrong way, the stuff comes flying out of them. So here's Shawscope Volume 1. You got blue, you got orange, and now you got green. I tell you, if you tip this ever so slightly, things come flying out of here like you wouldn't, like it's craziness. So those are the two volume sets that I've got so far. Green, coincidentally, is my favorite color. So the fact that they're coming out with a green set is just like extra personal to me. Yeah, but that's cool stuff. That's it from Arrow. We've got a bunch of stuff. Shawscope Volume 3. We've got At Close Range, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, A Simple Plan, Sam Raimi, The Invasion, if you like those 2007 thrillers. If you're nostalgic for that stuff. That movie came out when I was 20 years old, just to put that into people's perspective. I was going to the movies all the time. So I always saw that trailer and stuff. So we're done with Arrow. Now we move into the grand finale. Where are we sitting? Oh, we're at the 2 hour and 46-minute mark. We are at Vinegar Syndrome. This was the reason why I had put this off an extra day instead of doing Monday, the September 2nd for the live stream. Typically doing these on the Mondays. I went to Tuesday, September 3rd, just to give me an extra day to delve into everything they got going on here. And they had 26 releases combined when it came to Vinegar Syndrome and the OCN partner labels. Let's get into a lot of these. I'm not gonna. I did, like I said, I only had 2 days to go through these, so I wasn't able to watch as much as I wanted. So we'll get into what I did see, what I find interesting. Let's start here with the Vinegar Syndrome proper. So we've got I think 7 releases announced from them. We've got Howling 2 getting a 4K UHD release, Cruel Britannia, which is just a regular Blu-ray, Delirium, a photo of, oh boy, Gioia. I'm sorry, my Italian is terrible. That's a 4K. That's a 4K UHD release. That's a Lamberto Bava film. That's why I'm curious about it. It's a Lamberto Bava film. We've got a VSA release, a Vinegar Syndrome archive release of An Eye for an Eye. And then we've got a Vinegar Syndrome Labs release of Bloodline. And then we've got a Cinematograph release of Go Fish. And then we've got a Distripix release of Blonde on a Bum Trip. And then we've got some various other Vinegar Syndrome things here. We've got some t-shirts and things like that. They had their Totally Rad sale over the weekend, where they had things that were on sale for as much as 75% off, all the way down to like 10% off. Like I said earlier in the show, way back at the beginning, someone asked if I bought anything, and I did get Little Darlings. I did order Little Darlings. I did also see that they won't be shipping any of these things until September 9th. So I don't plan on getting this probably till way later on this month, if not into October, just because I feel like people went kind of crazy. But I do have the other Cinematograph release here of Red Rock West, which I showed off earlier. I figured I'd show it off again. Why not? Because Little Darlings is going to have similar packaging to it, the digibook type of packaging. And it was on sale for 50% off. 50% off for Vinegar Syndrome, like sub-label release. I kind of couldn't couldn't pass it up for Little Darlings, which is a surprisingly very good movie. I was really like that movie. So that will be coming in sometime in the future. Um, but what else we've got here? So what I have seen, I've seen Howling 2. Howling 2 is the sequel to Howling, which is the Joe Dante film, which has a Blu-ray and a 4K UHD release from Shout Studios. I have the 4K. Hold on, let me go get it. So I've got it right here. Luckily, my horror shelf is right off in that direction. So here is the Howling 4K. I wish the glare wasn't so bad, but you understand. You can see it. um, and this is directed by Joe Dante. Um, this is I think a really good werewolf film. Um, Howling 2 is fascinating. Howling 2, how should I put this? It's in that category of sequels to horror films that are completely different than their original in pretty much every single way possible. Think of it kind of like how Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is rather completely different than the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. Like that's how I would describe The Howling 2. It is, yeah, it's needless to say, it doesn't have a very high rating on Letterboxd. um, but it's getting a two disc 4K UHD release from Vinegar Syndrome. It's directed by Philippe Mora. Philippe Mora directed a couple of films I think I actually have. Philippe Mora directed Mad Dog Morgan. Mad Dog Morgan is um the Dennis Hopper starring film from 1976, which Indicators put out a release of. He also directed The Return of Captain Invincible, which has a release from Severin. The Return of Captain Invincible is actually a movie I really like. You can, I think, watch it on YouTube right now. It stars um Alan Alda and Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee has it starts singing at one point. It's a wild movie. But Howling 2, it has the subtitle of like it has the subtitle Your Sister is a Werewolf. And it's got another subtitle as well. Like, yeah, it's a wild movie. It is though a direct sequel to The Howling. Um, yeah, so Ben is mourning the recent death of his sister Karen, who is the protagonist of the first film. So if you do need to see this film in order to kind of understand the beginning of the second. Um uh yeah, he believes that she was killed in a savage wolf attack. At her funeral, Ben is approached by the mysterious Stefan, who is portrayed by Christopher Lee, and warns him that a cult of werewolves had attacked Karen, that she too will become an undead lycanthrope. Although dismissing his claim as mere superstition, Ben's girlfriend Jenny convinces him that he should take Stefan's warning more seriously, and sure enough, Karen is soon back from the dead, covered in fur and complete with a deadly set of canines. After being narrowly saved from a fatal bite by Stefan, Ben is persuaded that he's telling the truth and volunteers to join him on his mission to destroy the increasing hordes of beastly creatures ravaging Europe. But as their journey takes them to Transylvania, where werewolves from around the world are gathering for their ritual, Ben and Stefan fear that they might be in over their heads, mainly once werewolf queen Sturba receives news of their arrival. Yeah, this is a B movie. Christopher Lee, years later, had a small role in Joe Dante's Gremlins 2, The New Batch, and I think he apologized to Joe Dante for being in this movie. Even though I don't think Joe Dante had anything to do with it. Oh, what did I say? What did I say, Johnny? Oh, did I say Alan R? Did I say who did I say for Return of Captain Invincible? Because I do this all of the time. Did I say Alan Alda? Because I say Alan Alda and Alan Arkin. I intertwine them all the time. Completely different actors, completely different careers. Yet I completely botch their names because they both have the same first name and their last name starts with an A. It's too close. It's too close. People need different stage names. They need different stage names. Yep, you're right. You're right, Johnny. I did say Alan Alda. Uh, yeah, it always screws me up. What's crazy is when I was kind of thinking about this movie and thinking about the director's work in my head days ago, I did the same thing. I did the same exact thing. And I said, I know I'm going to do it on the show too. I know I'm going to screw up Alan Arkin and Alan Alda. Uh, yeah, they were both comedy giants of the 70s. You're right. You're right. They were both comedy giants of the 70s. Yeah, similar actors. It's interesting. Um, but as I was saying, Howling 2 it's a B movie of a B movie. There's it's crazy special effects. There's nudity just for the sake of nudity in this film. Um, it's you have to see it to believe it. I believe it's streaming. I think it's streaming on Tubi or it's streaming on Amazon Prime Video. One of the two. Either way, I wouldn't pay to see this movie. It's not good. It's such a curiosity too, and they made more Howling films after this too. The production of this movie is fascinating too, because I believe the Howling, this one here, came out in '81, and this movie didn't come out until '85. Yeah, I think this came out in '81. Let me see. Yeah, this did come out in '81. Um, but yeah, so it's what an interesting movie. Reb Brown plays like the hero protagonist in this. Reb Brown is in one of the funniest and most well-known episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000 ever, and that's called Space Mutiny. If you ever have the chance to watch that episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000, do it because it's hilarious. Because he's in the movie Space Mutiny, and he's such a bad B actor. He's so bad. Oh, I haven't seen this was my first Howling sequel. First time I've ever seen a Howling sequel, Johnny. Um We're Kangaroos. I thought this movie was wild. Oh man. The ending of this movie is so absurd. Man, it's so I can't even describe it, but I gotta move past it just for the interest of time. And I'm starting to fade in terms of energy here. This is why I'll say this for any of you out there starting a podcast and wanting to do a podcast, make sure uh, you get yourself like physically ready to do it because it takes a lot out of you. We got a brand new audio commentary with director Philip Mora, holy heck, and author slash screenwriter Kelly Goodner. This is obviously a 4K UHD, like I said, in Dolby Vision. Holy heck, I couldn't imagine what this movie's gonna look like in that way. Lights, Camera, Werewolves, a 35-minute conversation with the director. Um, damn. A romp through Czechoslovakia, an interview with actress Annie Pressman. Man, I really wish Christopher Lee was still alive to get an interview for this. Like, is there no archival interviews out there with Christopher Lee on this movie? I just need to see it because he looked so. There were scenes where he looked like he hated being in the movie. He hated being in the movie, but this has a lot of special features, a lot of special features. But I got to move on from it. That's Howling 2 4K UHD. I don't want to spend too much time on a lot of these. Crew Britannia, 3 killer thrillers from the UK. I do want to mention this box set here. This is a Blu-ray box set. We've got the movies. It's a 2-disc set with 3 movies. Let me see. We've got the movie Crucible of Terror from 1971 by Ted Hooker. We've got the Second movie here, Penny Gold from 1973, directed by Jack Cardiff. That's why this is important. Listen to me. Jack Cardiff was a great cinematographer. Jack Cardiff shot The Black Narcissus, The Red Shoes, The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. Legendary Jack Cardiff. He was an incredible cinematographer, years and years ahead of his craft. But he also did some directing as well. He directed not a lot of great films. He directed The Long Ships, Dark of the Sun, Penny Gold, Follyfoot. Like, these are not like great films. The Liquidator, The Mutations was his last film he directed in 1974. But he was mostly known in his career for being a cinematographer. He directed A Matter of Life and Death. Like I said, The Red Shoes, Black Narcissus. Did he do? I don't know if he did Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. I may have been wrong on that, but still, he was a cinema DP on The African Queen. The Barefoot Contessa, War and Peace, The Brave One, The Prince and the Showgirl, that Marilyn Monroe film. Girl on the Motorcycle, which has a Kino release. The late Alain Delon's in that film. So that's why I was interested in this box set here. And then we've got last film here, which is called Craze, from 1974, directed by Freddie Francis. Hold on, let me go check. Yeah, Craze, right? Yeah, I said Craze. Freddie Francis. Yeah, Freddie Francis directed Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. He also directed Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, one of the Hammer films of Christopher Lee as Dracula. He directed Trog. Oh man, he directed Torture Garden. What else do we have? He directed The Evil of Frankenstein, which was one of the Hammer horror Frankenstein films. He directed Paranoiac from 1963 with Oliver Reed. I think is actually rather good, actually very good. So that's kind of why I wanted to mention this set here. We got a commentary track by Kim Newman on each of the films. That's very cool. Each were scanned and restored in 4K from their 35mm original camera negative. Crucible of Terror scanned and restored in 2K from a 35mm vault positive. So you got Penny Gold and Craze 4K scan, Crucible of Terror 2K scan. All right, that makes sense. And a couple of other special features down here. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, the Lamberto Bava film, which is Delirium, photo of Goya? Gioia? Oh boy, it's Gioia. Gioia? I have no idea. I'm just scraping the bottom here. This is a 4K, a 2-disc 4K set edition. Lots of special features here. There's a 41-minute making of documentary on here as well, called Nightmare Delirium. That's very cool. That's good to know. I know nothing about this movie, but I know Lamberto Bava's work, a little bit of his work. Let me move on from there in the interest of time. I do want to talk about the Cinematograph release, Go Fish. Like I said, this line, which is being produced by Justin La Liberty, whom, if you follow him on Twitter, follow his Letterboxd. He's a good follow. He's a really good follow. He sees so many movies. Chances are, if there's a movie that you're looking up on Letterboxd, his name's going to be under it because he's seen it. But Cinematograph, this is a very interesting 90s indie film, queer indie film. This is that queer cinema revival of the 90s. Think of something, when I was watching, I immediately thought of Cheryl Dunye's The Watermelon Woman. It has that vibe to it. It's even, I would say, even more kind of low key than that, even more indie than that, which is kind of tough to pull off, but it's really, really good. Um, hold on, let me see. Let me go check. Yeah, yeah, Go Fish. It's directed by um Rose Troche. Max is a trendy, pretty young lesbian who is having trouble finding love. A friend sets her up with Eli, whom Max likes, but Eli is frumpy, homely, and older, nor do they have much in common. Can Max learn to look past the packaging? That's kind of what the basic premise of the movie is, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. It's dealing with a lot of questions about queer identity, about identity within the LGBTQ plus community, specifically, obviously at that time, but also asking questions that are probably still um, relevant to today, still relevant to today, because they're very humanistic questions of the search for identity, of all of those things, and essentially existentialism within that community and existentialism in general. And the movie is really, really good. It is available to stream on the Roku channel on Pluto TV, but it is very low budget. I think this movie was made. Um, let me see. Let me get the budget on this. I think it was made for like $15,000 or something. It's super low budget movie, um, and it definitely shows it. I think it's known predominantly as a writer, and um, she wrote like a American Psycho. Let me see if I yeah, budget $15,000. Um, yeah, it's a fascinating little indie film from the '90s. Yeah, yeah, I know. Thank you, Johnny. Don't worry, only 38 more partner labels. Yeah, I haven't even gotten to the partner labels yet, and I'm like swimming. I'm gonna pass out after this. Like I watch stuff after the podcast, but I don't think I've got it in me to watch anything after this. Um, yeah, but as I was saying, Guinevere Turner, um, known primarily as a writer, has directed some things before. Oh, I was just forgot to spell Guinevere. Yeah, Guinevere Turner, who wrote American Psycho. She's an actress, writer, producer, director. I want to see what else she's written. She was also she's also in American Psycho in one scene. She's also in um like small roles in like I think Chasing Amy. She's like in the background in one scene. Um what's interesting is if I remember correctly, the making of Chasing Amy, she's part of the inspiration behind that movie. Um if you watch the making of Chasing Amy, the Kevin Smith film called Tracing Amy, I think part of the inspiration behind that movie is Guinevere Turner, but also part of it is um, Kevin Smith's relationship with Joey Lauren Adams at the time. That's part of it, and then that's also part of it as well. Um, so yeah, I'm fading like you wouldn't believe here. But that's Go Fish. But Go Fish is really, really good. Um, yeah, Max co-writer Guinevere Turner, a young lesbian college student living in Chicago, is in an aromatic dry spell. Her roommate Kia sets Max up with Eli, like I said, an older woman, and Max initially dismisses, but ultimately falls for until it's revealed that Eli may already be committed. That's also another part of it. The movie's more about like relationships and things like that. It's a very open dialogue heavy movie. If you're thinking of that '90s indie realm, think of Clerks. Like I just said, the Kevin Smith Clerks, Chasing Amy, Watermelon Woman, um, all of those types of like really talky '90s indie films. That's this type of movie. Special features here. Our new audio commentary with director, co-writer, and editor Rose Trochet, moderated by Cinematograph's Justin Liberty. New audio commentary with queer film historian Elizabeth Purcell and writer Shayna Macy Warner. New video interview with Rose Trochet. New video interview with actress and co-writer Guinevere Turner. New video interview with actress Anastasia Wilcox. New video interview with actress V.S. Brody. Guinevere Turner is also in The Watermelon Woman, now that I'm thinking about it. So there's the connection right there. New text essays by queer film guide author Kyle Turner, film critic Jordan Searles, and queer filmmaker / historian / archivist Jenny Olson. Yeah, I want this release pretty significantly. I've been truthfully wanting to do something here on Chasing Labels for many years, dealing with queer cinema, dealing with specifically new queer cinema of the late 80s and into the 90s. And I realized that I don't know a lot about it. I'm a relative novice when it comes to these things. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can before I make any video here on Chasing Labels or on YouTube or in general. I don't want to be sending out information I don't know what I'm talking about. I feel like a lot of people talk before they know anything anymore. But yeah, this is the Cinematograph release. Let's move over to the partner labels releases. We've got a bunch of them. We had 19 of them. 4 of them were from the same partner label. So we'll get into that. Let's run these bad boys down. So we've got from VHS Hitfest, Asylum of Terror. From Icarus Films, The Battle of Chile. Battle of Chile. From Darkstar, The Becomers. From ETR Media, Devi Danger. From Big World Pictures, Disco Boy. From Memory, that's the name of the label, Dogleg. From Film Movement Classics, or Film Movement, just in general. Ferocious Fukasaku, 2 films by Kinji Fukasaku. So much Kinji Fukasaku is being released right now. It's awesome. Next, from Saturn's Core, we have Flesh Freaks. From another one from Film Movement, this is number 2 here. Hotel. Then from Utopia, I Used to Be Funny. And then the next 2 are both from Film Movement. So this would be Film Movement number 3 and number 4 of announcements. We have Lords and we have Lovely Rita. So Hotel, Lords, and Lovely Rita are all directed by the same person. They're all directed by Jessica Hausner, who I believe is an Austrian filmmaker. I watched all 3 of those films, and I'll get into them when I'm done reading these off. From AGFA, or American Genre Film Archive, Mary Jane's Not a Virgin Anymore, and the films of Sarah Jacobson. From Connie, we have My Heart is the Eternal Rose. From Yellow Veil Pictures, The Other Lawrence. From Factory 25, See You Next Tuesday. From Art Label, Spirit Riser. From Decalogue, That Guy Dick Miller. An incredible documentary. Can't recommend it enough. And then from Canadian International Pictures, When Tomorrow Dies, our buddies over at Canadian International Pictures. I believe this is... I wanted to see this movie so damn badly, I just ran out of time. To find it is a chore. I couldn't find it anywhere, to be honest, and also, I just didn't have any time. I ran out of time. But I want this release because it's part of, I believe, a trilogy, a loose trilogy of films from Larry Kent. He had done The Bitter Ash and Sweet Substitute, and I believe this is I think it's called a Vancouver trilogy. Is that what it was called? Yeah. We'll talk about it right now. Let's go into it. Arriving on the heels of The Bitter Ash and Sweet Substitute, When Tomorrow Dies concluded Larry Kent's Vancouver trilogy with a vivid new sense of style and daring. Working with a larger budget and a more seasoned crew, the director fused elements of film noir and the Hollywood melodrama to deliver a lurid yet compassionate investigation of the housewife's psyche. Applying Kent's preoccupation with youthful disaffection to an older generation, When Tomorrow Dies brought new depth to this approach and cemented his reputation as a maverick of Canadian independent filmmaking. Our buddies over at Canadian National Film do great stuff. Canadian International Pictures do great stuff. I've never seen a release from them that hasn't been at least interesting, and has production wise, when it comes to their releases, they always put in a lot. You know, some of the movies, yeah, some of them are more like those TV movies that were kids movies, not great, but at least they put a lot into the making of the products. But this year is a new audio commentary, an archival audio commentary, new introduction by Larry Kent. It's got a new interview with Kent. It's got an independent evolution, new interview with film professor David Douglas, new interview with Heather Whitehead, daughter of star Patricia Gage, talking to Larry Kent from 2005. That's a conversation with the director. Kent on Kent is an archival audio interview with him back in the 60s. Holy heck. Mothers and Daughters, a little scene Kent feature exploring some of the same themes as When Tomorrow Dies from 93. That's an 85-minute long extra film in here. New introduction to Mothers and Daughters by Douglas, and a booklet featuring an essay by film critic and professor Tom McSorley. Once again, another nice release from Canadian International Pictures, When Tomorrow Dies. I think I still need to get The Bitter Ash and Sweet Substitute and get this as well. I may get them all at the same time. I don't know. But yeah, I really, you know what the biggest regret I have is their movies are tough to find to watch. They really are. These like super, obscure Canadian films have kind of been lost to time, really, and lost into archives. And they're unearthing a lot of stuff that I didn't even know existed. I didn't know Canada really had any type of, film industry, really. Yeah, I know in the 70s, I remember, Cronenberg, a lot of that stuff in the 70s and whatnot. But a lot of these other things I just didn't know existed. Even stuff going back into the 60s, like this film. It's fascinating to me. I'm learning about a whole new industry of movies through them. So that's kind of cool. Let me move over to what else we've got cooking here. You know what? I'll go to right now. We'll work backwards, I guess. The catalog. That guy, Dick Miller. There's not much I want to say about this, other than this is a phenomenal documentary about the late great Dick Miller. This is a documentary directed by Elijah Drenner. If you know who Dick Miller is, I mean, I just mentioned Joe Dante. He was just like he was in a bunch of Joe Dante films. He's in Gremlins. He's in so much stuff. I'll look up Dick Miller right now just to give you a rundown. He's just a guy who shows up for like one scene or two scenes in a movie, and he'll just run his lines and that's it. But he's recognizable on screen. He's that guy. He's that guy. He was in Terminator. He was the pawn shop clerk in Terminator. In The Burbs, he's the garbage man. Yeah, he's in the Gremlins. He's in Tale from the Crypt, Demon Knight. He had 184 credits. He was in so much stuff as just a guy. And this is such a love letter to who he was and his career and his life. And I saw this movie a few years ago. Just a wonderful documentary. This is selling fast. There's only 1,000 of these in the limited edition. In the limited edition version, and it's down to 360. Down to 360. So that's really, really, it's really awesome. I would no hesitate telling people to buy this. Yeah, it's a great documentary, just fantastic. Moving on from there, let's get into what I did see. So Lovely Rita, Lovely Rita, Hotel, and Lords. That's the order that these came in. Lovely Rita came out in 2001. Hotel came out in 2004. And Lords came out in 2009. All directed by Jessica Hausner, a Austrian filmmaker, I believe. All completely different movies. They're all incredibly different, yet all unique and interesting. And very indie, very good too, solid. But how do I say this? Not for everyone. They're an acquired taste. You'd have to have extreme patience with her work and these movies. And you gotta be kind of a cinephile, you know what I mean, with a capital C to really appreciate the work that's going into them and appreciate the work that they are. So first up here is the lovely Rita. This movie is 79 minutes long. The only special feature on here is an audio commentary by the director. Feeling confined by her well-mannered suburban environment, the pubescent Rita gradually attempts to test and break the expectations made of her. As she skips class to pursue her infatuation for a local bus driver, as well as her own desires, her disapproving parents and classmates begin to question the motivation behind her provocations. However, Rita's adolescent rebellions. Oh boy. However, Rita's adolescent rebellions occlude a more sinister intention. Um, yeah, that's kind of accurate. Um, it's it's a coming of age film done in a very blunt manner. Um, about a young woman who is kind of trapped in her not even like not even like harsh circumstances or anything. Like her parents aren't abusive and her world is not like uncomfortable or in any way. It's kind of a critique on kind of like middle class bourgeoisie complacent boredom, really, from a teenage perspective. And kind of rebellion and going through those teenage uh angst, growing pains, and trying to go through those existential crises that most people have at that time, doing things you're not supposed to do, exploring things you haven't really explored before, whether it be hormonal or sexual or social or whatever, maybe perhaps doing things that are growing up too fast in certain aspects. You know what I mean? Teenage years are an interesting minefield of exploration that many of us go through, and the film is very much exploring that on a very um authentic authentic way I would say, specifically from a woman's perspective, a female perspective, a young girl's perspective. um an interesting movie, a very quiet but profound film in many ways. um yeah, it was very good. It's a very good film. You can tell limitations when it comes to budget and things like that. The film is shot almost like a home movie, really. It feels like a film that one would make as being a film student in college or university or something like that. Um, yeah, it's interesting. It came out in 2001. Like I said, relatively short run time. But moving on to Hotel. Hotel couldn't be more different. Hotel is a movie that, you guessed it, takes place in a hotel. It's basically a love letter to movies made by Michael Haneke, David Lynch, and Stanley Kubrick. It feels like a very low key, um, independent version of The Shining, mixed with elements of David Lynch and Michael Haneke. Michael Haneke, of course, being an Austrian filmmaker as well, would make a lot of sense. Let me move over to Hotel and see what we got cooking here. Um, Hotel is, um, yeah, Hotel is interesting. Um, very slow moving, very subdued. It's a horror film, but it's atmospheric. Think of, like I said, think of Lost Highway from, well, the first half of Lost Highway from David Lynch. Something like in that range. Think of the earlier moments in The Shining. You know what I mean? The hallways, the lighting, the airiness of it all of that stuff, the atmosphere. That's Hotel. This young woman basically takes a job at uh, this hotel that's kind of out of the way, kind of isolated, and it's a mystery how, or the person that she's replacing kind of disappeared and no one's really questioning it. The people that she works with at the hotel are kind of weird. There's weird sounds happening at night. There's like alarms going off in certain ways and in certain areas, and it's just, the woods are very eerie. Like I said, incredibly atmospheric. This only has an audio commentary by the director, Jessica Hausner. um you gotta be super patient with this movie, super patient with it. Um, yeah, moving on from there, you have Lords, which I think is her best film. Lourdes is that place in France. It's a holy site in France where I believe uh, Mary may or may not have appeared at one point in time. But anywho, many people pilgrimage to those types of holy sites looking for healing. Many people who are physically disabled do that. They go to Fatima in Portugal. They go to Lourdes. They go to the Vatican. Et cetera, et cetera. Um, and this movie is about a woman who is making a pilgrimage to Lourdes with another group of physically disabled people, and she has a caretaker as well as there's I believe like volunteer nurses who like take care of the people and other volunteers and whatnot that assist with these people. And she goes. Oh, actually, one of the nurses is Leah Sadu. Leah Sadu is in this. This was before Leah Sadu, I think, was even in Blue's the Warmest Color, and before of course she was in the James Bond films and whatnot and other films. She's in this film as one of the nurses. Um, and this is actually the third feature from Jessica Hausner. This is her most sophisticated film. Yet again, another film that you got to take your time with. You got to be really patient with, and it's all underneath the surface. The themes are all underneath the surface of this movie. So what happens is this woman who is, I think she has a multiple sclerosis, something similar to that. But she's wheelchair bound. She can't move, and she goes to Lourdes, and she starts slowly like she's able to start moving again. She's able to start walking again. And people around her are like, "Oh, this is a miracle. This is all of those things. This is miraculous. Call a priest. Call the Vatican. Call somebody. Call the doctors. See what happened here." But while the movie, you would think, "Oh, it's a Christian movie. It's oh, miracles are amazing. It's great. All that kind of stuff." The movie's not really that. The movie is constantly questioning the human perspective of religion and faith, and also constantly questioning the idea of miracles being real or not real, and also questioning what the human response to miracles would actually be. Would it be this idea of like, oh, like, would it be a positive thing, or would it be something that people would be skeptical of? Would people be pessimistic about? Or would people start asking questions like, oh, why is that person healed while that person's not healed? Why her, not me? All of these things. And it leads to this idea, this exploration of human nature is incredibly complex. Like, human nature is also incredibly negative and pessimistic at times. And human nature is also incredibly selfish as well. So the movie's dealing with all of these things. And it's doing it in an incredibly subtle way. You got to pay attention to all of these things. Like I said, it's the most sophisticated film that she did. There's a Jessica Hausner interview on here. There's a short film on here as well. No audio commentary though, which is unfortunate. I know that Martin Scorsese is a big fan of this film. Martin Scorsese, of course, making many films dealing with faith and crisis of faith and all of those things. I mean, that's been part of his career and part of his identity for as long as we've known him. So that is Lourdes. These are all films by Film Movement. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. I do want to touch on some other things here. Agfa's release of Mary Jane's Not a Virgin Anymore and the films of Sarah Jacobson. This is a very interesting companion piece to Go Fish. Very similar companion piece. It's also a super low budget B movie from the 90s. Excuse me. So Sarah Jacobson's Agfa, let's see. Blah, 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 blah. And this is a more of a collection of Sarah Jacobson's film, but the highlight of it is Mary Jane's Not a Virgin Anymore. It's just Sarah Jacobson's only feature film, is a vibrant and vital antidote to every phony Hollywood teen picture, bringing lo-fi realness to coming-of-age genre, very much so. So it's it's primarily a film about these young people who all work at a movie theater. They all work at a movie theater, and they're and actually it's more from the perspective of the youngest one who works there, who happens to be still a teenager. So these are basically like, she's hanging around with the older kids, the kids in who are college aged, or maybe even older than that, and she's the young one. She's hanging out with all of them, and but she's still going through the teenage phase, like I said, existential development and existential crises in term and and exploration of the world and all that kind of stuff. Sexual awakening and all these things and whatnot. She's going through all that stuff while all of these other people that she's around have all gone through that. So she's learning from them. She's asking questions about like what was their first time like, what's life like in college, what's all this kind of stuff like when you're older. She's hanging around with them at parties and smoking and getting into all kinds of stuff and whatnot. um it's an incredibly kind of authentic experience of what it's like to hang out with people of an older age when you are of a younger age. You know what I mean? I found that to be rather interesting. And this movie here, is very much in the same vein as like a Richard Linklater Slacker or Dazed and Confused or Kevin Smith's Clerks. Yet again, you're seeing this type of, that indie type of realm, very dialogue heavy, very situationally based. This is a very raw film. This film was actually, I think, shot on Super 8 reverse stock, whereas Clerks was shot on 16 millimeter reverse stock, if I remember. So this movie is even a lower quality in terms of video quality than Clerks was. So it's very fascinating what this movie is exploring and all that it's exploring. Um, yeah, in this film, it's they mention like films of Allison Anders like Gas Food Lodging. They mentioned films, like I said, like Slacker and things like that. Um, yeah, that's what Mary Jane's Not a Virgin Anymore is kind of like. That movie came out in 1996, runs about 95 minutes long. It is a long film, probably too long, but it's still rather interesting in its perspective and kind of this general perspective I'm kind of getting at with these types of movies is the things that these characters are going through, the themes that these movies are exploring are rather universal. They're still going on to this day, and they seem to still be things that young people go through, or people of a certain age go through, in every generation, whether it be Generation X, millennials, Z, A's, future on, whatever. You know what I mean? We're all going to go through these types of moments in our lives, and these movies are kind of chronicling them for inside of that movement, inside of their specific moments, but also you can take from them a general, perspective on these things. So I really like this movie a lot. This is something I'm definitely going to get from AGFA. AGFA does a lot of these types of films. It also comes with a lot of shorts from this director, from Sarah Jacobson. So this is a nice little package here from AGFA. Let's move on from there to the Kanye release, which is going to connect back to what I talked about earlier. This movie is My Heart Is That Eternal Rose, directed by Patrick Tam. This movie is like 1980s Hong Kong action meets Wong Kar-wai. Finding out that Patrick Tam was an editor on a couple of Wong Kar-wai films makes so much sense to me now. This movie is really interesting, really good. Yeah, I can't stress this enough. People watch this movie. Um, the idyllic beachside life of a retired triad boss, his daughter Lap, and her boyfriend Rick shatters when a mob favor turns into a bloody shootout, trading her freedom for her father's. Lap becomes mistress to Godfather Shen, while Rick goes into exile. Years later, as Shen unknowingly hires Rick as a hitman, Lap sees her chance of escape, while Dougheye triad gopher Tony Leung completes the doomed quadrangle. Um, it's it's incredibly stylized in that 1980s Hong Kong style. Um, Visually beautiful at times. There's great action sequence, but the movie's not entirely about action sequences. It reminded me a lot of John Woo's A Better Tomorrow in that sense, in that style, more so than something like The Killer or Hard Boiled. It's not that type of level of action. way more, way more low key than that, but it's really, really good. This is getting the 2K restoration, the interview with John Sham by Arnaud Lanouk. Uh, yeah, you're getting some other type of stuff here, which is really good. Interview with actor Simon Yam on booklet with interview with Patrick Tam. That's kind of cool. What is this? Oh, it's presented alongside 2 episodes from celebrated TV series CID from 1976, directed by Patrick Tam, shot by David Chung, written by Joyce Chan. You got season 1, episode 3, the 2 Teddy Girls, and then season 1, episode 14, Dawn, Noon, Dusk, Night. And both of those episodes are 49 minutes apiece. So that's really cool. You get TV series episodes from the 1970s. That's really cool. Yeah, this is definitely something I want in my collection. I was just checking to see how many are left. Yeah, so that's a lot. So the other film movement release is the 2 Fukasaku films. Ferocious Fukasaku, 2 films by Kinji Fukasaku. I just want to mention that really quickly. These are early Fukasaku films, one from 1964, the other one is from 1976. There's a 16-page booklet with a new essay by critic Kenji Fujishima. Wolves, Pigs, and Men and Violent Panic are the 2 films in this set. Yeah, and it's a 2-disc set. I just want to mention that because we're getting a lot of Fukasaku films lately. So if you're having a Fukasaku collection going, you have 2 more to add. Then lastly here, I just want to make a quick mention of the Battle of Chile. This is a 3-part documentary from 1970, from 1976. This is about the revolution in Chile in 1973. On September 11, 1973, President Salvador Allende's democratically elected Chilean government was overthrown in a bloody coup by General Augusto Pinochet's army. And this movie has footage of that time there, like actual real footage from that time there. It's quite fascinating. It's quite fascinating to get like on-site footage of real-time historical events happening and preserving them for 50 years later, nearly 50 years later. The one thing about the 20th century is we finally were able to start video documenting historical events happening. That is what I find so fascinating. That's why nowadays it's so important to kind of videotape everything that's going on for future generations to learn from, really, and future generations to know what's going on, specifically historical events, big historical events. Not me here talking to you guys, although I do take pride in all of this. This isn't quite an historical event that's going on. That would be amazing if someday, yes, it is. But you understand what I'm saying. So that's fascinating for someone who's a history buff, someone who has a degree in history, who loves like historical documentaries and things like that. That's something that's right up my alley. But with that said, I think I'm gonna have to call it a night here. We are way over more than any of the other episodes I've been. But this was a gigantic 2 weeks of releases from the boutique label world for movie collectors. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for spending however long time you end up watching or listening to this. I will be back here in 2 weeks to do another episode of Chasing Labels. We, of course, will be doing another episode of the Unwatched Pile here this week. I will be doing some short YouTube shorts in between then and now. All this kind of stuff we got here at Chasing Labels. Please listen to this if you can at the usual sites you find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, etc. Watch here on YouTube, watch in the rerun, watch it, put it on and don't even listen. Just as long as we get the views, get people, get eyeballs on the stuff. You know what I'm saying here. I'm running out of steam. I have no steam left. I am completely empty. I've got nothing left. But thank you all for showing up, for showing your support here, for all we do here at Chasing Labels. And hey, keep on watching those movies because I know I will.